Across the BBC, this is 5 Live Formula One, live from Monza.
Get ready then for action at Monza.
It's just magic, this track.
Lewis Hamilton wins the Italian Grand Prix.
Villeneuve holds his line around the fourth gear parabolica bend.
It is one of the most emotional ones.
He's crying his eyes out in amongst the trees.
Real men never cry.
Hakkinen absolutely distraught. I am surrounded by a bunch of cheering, gesticulating, shouting, overjoyed Italians. A 1-2 for Ferrari at Monza.
They have you in the heart, and I think that's amazing to see the whole people screaming my name.
And Michael Schumacher crosses the line to win the Italian Grand Prix.
It's Forza Ferrari, Forza Fernando. He wins the Italian Grand Prix at Monza.
Charles Leclerc has won it for Ferrari. The first time since 2010 that Ferrari have won at their home Grand Prix in Italy.
All my dreams that I've done since child, it's just absolutely crazy. I'm so happy to win here in Monza in front of the Tifosi for the team, and yeah, it feels amazing.
Feel like I should be on a gondola with an ice cream somewhere. Beautiful homage to Monza. I'm Jenny Gow. We have 5 minutes until the race starts. I'm here with Jack Nicholls, Jolyon Palmer. And Jack, this is such a great track. Memories of Monza just bring alive the thought of motorsport.
Called a gelato, Jenny.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
I'm allergic. Sorbetto?
So, yeah, a wonderful circuit, steeped in history. The third oldest race circuit in the world. The second oldest active permanent race circuit in the world. The other two being Brooklands and Indianapolis. It really is a mainstay of Formula One, and so much history. Today's race, it's not going to be historic in the way that Charles Leclerc winning for Ferrari at Monza was last year, but I think it's going to be very, very entertaining. Really excited for the battle for third. Valtteri Bottas, can he do anything to stop Lewis Hamilton? We've seen him get decent starts over the last few races. It's a long run towards turn one. It's not impossible. He could be behind as well to pick up a slipstream from Hamilton. It's not impossible that Bottas is going to get him at the first corner, and that would give us some level of interest in the fight for the win. Of course, Hamilton has to be favourite.
Yeah, it's about 400 metres, Jolyon, down to the first turn. And this is a track we know where if you can tuck in behind somebody, you can get a slipstream. So how much can a driver prepare for this? How much do they just have to look in their wing mirrors, if at all, and react to what's happening?
A lot of the start is just instinctive, really. It's just about reacting to what happens around you. It's a relatively solid run down to turn one, but comparing to Spa last time out, there's going to be none of that difficulty that Hamilton should have had up to Les Combes at the Kemmel Straight. He didn't have much difficulty there, and I won't hold my breath that Bottas can do anything from the inside here, but you never know. If he's had his porridge for breakfast and he fancies doing something a little different, then maybe, but he has been so hesitant to take any risk with fighting his teammate before. It's fine, he's a second driver and he's playing a perfect team game, but if he wants to win the race, he's got to try and pass Hamilton, and the only way he's going to do that, really, is the start, a very rare mistake from Hamilton, or reliability, or some strange strategy that can luck in a safety car or something.
Now, the Mercedes do look out the front row, but just behind them, there's a trio of drivers. Carlos Sainz for McLaren, Sergio Perez in the Racing Point, and Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Can any of those three drivers do something funky, Jack, to really mix things up? Could they take the lead?
No, but I think that battle, the battle for third place in itself is going to be really intense, because I think you've got Sainz there in the McLaren. If he can hold on to that third place by the end of the Grand Prix, that'll have been a really, really impressive drive. He's only had one podium before, and he wasn't even allowed to go on the podium on that occasion in last year. But I think that Sergio Perez behind him in the Racing Point, Verstappen in the Red Bull in fifth, he's got to carry on his podium forms if he wants to fight with Bottas. He's only the first race in Austria where he retired has Max Verstappen not been on the podium this season, so he's got a lot of incentive to try and climb up the field. Then you've got Norris and Ricciardo and Stroll and Albon and Gasly all in that fight as well, so I think that's going to be quite intense. And also seeing what the Ferraris can do. Leclerc in 13th on the grid. He's going to, look, can he get up and score some points? That'll be a good day for him. There's plenty of little subplots going on out there.
Talking about subplots, EFL Cup first round. It's been Brentford FC versus Wycombe Wanderers. Mike Williams, what's happened?
Cool and the gang blaring out around the new Brentford Community Stadium because the home side have won this one. They had to resort to a penalty shootout, but they beat Wycombe. 4 goals, 4-3 in the shootout. Scott Cashcott and Nick Freeman missing their spot kicks for Wycombe. So it instead fell to Marcus Force, the Finnish player for Brentford, to send them into the second round of the EFL Cup, the draw for which is about to be made. But after it ended 1-1 in extra time here at the brand new Brentford Community Stadium, it is Brentford who are in the hat for the second round of the EFL Cup.
Thanks very much, Mike. We've also got cricket for you today. It's the International T20s. We'll join Ellie Aldroyd after the Formula 1 for that, with England versus Australia. And there's also Nations League later with Wales versus Bulgaria. Oh, it's 5-0 at Arsenal, just to give you an update. Arsenal versus Reading in the Women's Super League. So, the engines are airing. We're ready to go. It is magnificent Monza. It is round 8 of the Formula 1 World Championship. Hamilton leads the standings. He's looking for his 90th win in Formula 1. Jolyon Palmer and Jack Nicholls, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. They're just about to take the tyre blankets off all of the cars. The mechanics and engineers starting to make their way away from the grid and just leaving the 20 race cars lined up on the grid. The Williams on the back row, fairly sadly actually, for their final race with Claire Williams as the team principal and the Williams family involved. They've had much better qualifying performances than that so far this season, but yeah, a shame that they're on the back row of the grid for this last hurrah for the family team. But on pole it's Lewis Hamilton. He and Valtteri Bottas pull away now on their formation lap, because it's 2:10 here on BBC Radio 5 Live. This, the Italian Grand Prix. So as we are a couple of minutes away from the start of the Grand Prix, this is the grid. Lewis Hamilton on pole position for Mercedes. His teammate Valtteri Bottas alongside him on the front row. Carlos Sainz is in third for McLaren. Fourth is Sergio Perez in the Racing Point. Fifth is Max Verstappen's Red Bull. Lando Norris, the British driver, is sixth in his McLaren. Ricciardo, Stroll, Albon and Gasly are the rest of the top 10. Daniel Kvyat starts outside the top 10 in 11th place, and he is the first driver on a different tyre. He's starting on the hard compound. Everybody else is on the softs. Ocon, Leclerc, Raikkonen, Magnussen the top 15. Grosjean, Vettel, Giovinazzi, Russell and Latifi the 20 drivers. Hamilton leads the Drivers' World Championship by 47 points over Max Verstappen, by 50 points over his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and he is going to look to extend that advantage with yet another victory. He's starting on pole position. He's won 5 of the 7 races so far this season. He's won 5 of the last 6. You'd be a brave person to bet against him today. He's coming down through the Royal Park at Monza, about 40 minutes or so north of Milan. And Hamilton is going to be starting on pole position with Bottas alongside him on the front row. It is a long run down towards the first corner. We've seen chaos there in the past. And I think Verstappen, Jolyon Palmer, is going to be pretty aggressive off the line.
Down in 5th place on the grid, Max Verstappen, behind Perez and Sainz in the Racing Point and the McLaren. He needs to try and pass those two quickly, because he should have better race pace. And he has been challenging the Mercedes in recent races, but not from 5th place if he can't pass those other two. And for Bottas, it's the start or nothing. Really crucial that someone gets in front of Lewis Hamilton into turn 1 if they want to beat him today. Otherwise, it's a long race as we've had in kind of 5 of the last 6, I guess. Arsenal on the hard tyre as well, by the way, further back. So he's one to watch out for later.
Arsenal 6, Reading 0. So they're putting in a domination of their own as Hamilton now makes his way towards his pole position grid slot. Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at the strategy. Hard tyres, as you say, for Vettel, but his Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc starts on the soft tyres as well as Ocon. But I think with a pit stop expected to take about 23.5 seconds, it's going to be a one-stop.
Yep. Carlos Sainz pulls into his grid slot in 3rd place in the orange McLaren. How aggressive is he going to be down towards the first corner? Is it worth him getting involved in a fight with the Mercedes at turn 1 that he's got no chance of beating over the course of the Grand Prix? The two Williams now are getting ready to line themselves up at the back of the grid. Quite a lot of smoke, actually, from the front left of Nicholas Latifi. Looks like more smoke than I would normally expect, coming off, presumably, the break-in there. He's lighting up the rear tyres to pull into position. We'll keep an eye on Latifi. He's starting at the back of the field in the Williams family's last race in Formula One. The team will continue. But it's Hamilton on pole, Bottas second, 53 laps of Monza coming up here on 5 Live. The race gets underway. Hamilton pulls away very nicely indeed. Bottas has got a pretty poor start. Carlos Sainz has got in front of him. Daniel Ricciardo is on the grass on the run down towards turn 1. Bottas already is down into 3rd position, and Lando Norris in the other McLaren sends it to the outside of Bottas down into the first corner. Norris has made a brilliant getaway. He doesn't manage to get ahead of Bottas. Hamilton leads, Sainz second, Bottas third. Norris up into 4th position. Max Verstappen has lost out at the start. They come charging now down towards the second chicane, and Bottas is under pressure from Norris, who goes all the way around the outside of him at the second chicane. Brilliant move from Lando Norris. McLaren are running 2nd and 3rd, Jolyon.
And Perez has a look at the inside of Bottas as well, and Lesmo won, but can't quite follow Norris through. What a move from Lando Norris around the outside of Valtteri Bottas, sometimes seen as a soft touch, and he's been passed now by Perez. He might get passed by Ricciardo. Bottas is having a shocker of a first lap.
Hamilton leads, Sainz second, Norris third, Perez fourth, Ricciardo is up into 5th place. Now all of a sudden Bottas is right with his his championship rival for 2nd position, Max Verstappen. Bottas going backwards and backwards. It's as if he's got a puncture or something, because he's just losing positions hand over fist. Verstappen doesn't quite fancy sending it down into the parabolica at the final corner. Bottas seemed to go in a little bit too deep, but keeps it all together. Here's his radio.
Copy, so.
Yeah, so Bottas saying puncture or something. It looks just a little bit strange, the rapidity with which he's going backwards through the order.
Well, I think he was just out of position. He's not pitted. Stroll's going to go around the outside of Verstappen. That's going to be tight, and Stroll's made a nice move around the outside of Max Verstappen. So both Red Bulls with really, really poor starts. Alex Albon cut turn 1 and filtered back in 15th place from 9th on the grid. And Max Verstappen's gone from 5th down to 8th. Red Bull's bad, McLaren's good, 2nd and 3rd for Sainz and Norris. I don't think Bottas has a lot wrong with the car. The way he launched it into parabolica, he was just out of position every single corner by the time Norris passed him at the 2nd chicane, and then he was on the back foot for the next car, which was Sergio Perez, and then the next car, which was Daniel Ricciardo, and then Max Verstappen. He just kept being out of place, and now he's getting his head down, and he's stabilised in 6th place. He's no longer under pressure from Lance Stroll. We'll see if he pits this lap, but he looks to be going fine now. The puncture's not got any worse if it is, but I think he was just always offline.
Hamilton leading the Grand Prix then on lap 2 of 53. It's Carlos Sainz in 2nd place for McLaren. It's Lando Norris 3rd in the other McLaren. What a start from Norris. Qualified 6th on the grid. Ended 4th at the end of the first lap, then around the outside of Bottas.
So pressures are still good. So front wing looks okay.
That's Bottas's radio. He's being told he got plenty of air in them, so...
Yeah, it's just a bad start, and the start wasn't great. The first lap, though, was just constantly, he was just being done by everyone in the midfield. Here we go, Verstappen with a chance to repass Lance Stroll.
Stroll did a really nice move, as you said last time, around the outside at the Rettifilio chicane at the end of the start-finish straight, and Verstappen gets him back in the same way before the DRS was even activated. Clunks over the curbs on the 2nd apex. Nice move, though, from Verstappen. Stroll is going to try and come back at him. Verstappen kicks up a little bit of grass coming through the Curva Grande, the long right-hander that takes them down towards the Variante della Roggia, the canal chicane at the halfway point of the lap. Lap 3 of 53, Hamilton leading, Sainz 2nd, Norris 3rd, Perez 4th, Ricciardo 5th, Bottas down in 6th, Stroll, Verstappen, Ocon, Gasly, Kvyat the top 10. Then it is Kvyat in 11th, my apologies, Raikkonen, Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Albon the top 15, Grosjean, Russell, Vettel, Latifi, Magnussen the top 20. We're just getting a look at the start again, and it was a bad start from Bottas. It looked like quite a slow reaction as well, but he just then got swamped and swamped and swamped.
Yeah, he was still 3rd on the exit of turn 2. He's now 6th, so he just kept losing places from then on. Lando Norris had a sublime start from 6th on the grid. He's around the outside of Bottas at turn 1, but can't make it through. Bottas then defends at the 2nd chicane. He gets done around the outside by Lando Norris. That shouldn't happen in a Mercedes, and I don't know if Norris would have tried that move on Hamilton, but Bottas he's weak in battle, in wheel to wheel. We've seen it many times the last races, and now the midfielders are chancing their arm at beating a Mercedes. And Bottas has just slipped 3 places then on that first lap. Sainz off the line, not much you can do about that, but then Norris, Perez and Ricciardo will come through.
It was the reason Albon went straight on at the first chicane was a little bit of a touch with Pierre Gasly down into that first corner. The cricket is underway at the Ageas Bowl in Southampton. Ellie Oldroyd's there. Fast start, Ellie.
Yeah, Australia have lost their first wicket. David Warner is the man out, caught behind by Jos Buttler after bowling of Jofra Archer. 3 really nippy deliveries from Archer. This one was short, reviewed by Warner, but it had brushed the gloves and he is out. Australia are 0 for 1 and Warner is out for a duck.
We've got full commentary of that on 5 Live Sports Extra. Thank you very much, Eddie. We'll keep up to date with that over the remainder of the Grand Prix. Then we'll be going there after the Grand Prix has concluded here on 5 Live. Lewis Hamilton leading the way. Sainz is in second, Norris in third. Sergio Perez is in fourth. Fifth for Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault. Sixth still is Valtteri Bottas, really bogged down in the midfield, ahead of Verstappen seventh, Stroll eighth, Ocon ninth, and Pierre Gasly the rest of the top 10, as Hamilton now across the line starts lap 5 of 53. Jolyon Palmer alongside myself, Jack Nicholls in commentary, and Jenny Gow has news on McLaren.
Yeah, well, just speaking to their engineers before they started this race, they were confident that the race starts are some of the best that there are up and down this grid. Sainz and Norris both very talented at this.
We'll go long.
Will go long is the very early decision there from Valtteri Bottas, so he will stay out on these soft tyres as long as he possibly can before switching at the pit stops. Jolyon.
So Bottas out-qualified Sainz by 7/10. He was basically a second quicker than the likes of Norris and Ricciardo in qualifying yesterday, and now he's stuck behind them. Bad news for him is that all the cars in front have got DRS still. Ricciardo's within a second of Sergio Perez, who's within a second of Lando Norris. So there's a big DRS train, so Bottas can't use that as an overtaking aid that it's designed for, because the guys in front have got it as well for a bit more straight line speed. Bottas does pop open his DRS down the straight down towards Ascari, but so does Ricciardo ahead, so does Perez ahead of him, and he's not got a big closing speed. He's got a very fast car, but he's stuck in this traffic, and at the moment, no chance to make progress. In fact, he's got Verstappen sniffing away just half a second back, and Max Verstappen might have a run. Lap 5 of 53. Hamilton's lead is 3 seconds over the McLaren of Carlos Sainz in second place. Sainz is 2 seconds ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. He is 1.3 seconds ahead of Sergio Perez, and that is where the train starts, really, behind Perez, because then the following 3 cars are all within a second of each other, so they're getting the DRS, the drag reduction system, where they open up the flap in the rear wing and can get some extra straight line speed. Here's Vettel.
Take more action. We have an issue on the left-hand side, rear left.
So Vettel has got an issue here in the Ferrari, because he's now fighting with the Williams, and he's locked up and gone straight on. Something's going on there with Vettel as he ploughs through the polystyrene bollards at the end of the first lap.
Yeah, couldn't stop the car, but his car was so out of shape through Parabolica, it looked already like something was up.
Brakes failed. The brakes failed. Brakes failed.
Well, that's the end of the day for Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari. A tortuous Italian Grand Prix for the Scuderia, the first of 3 races in Italy this year. They'll hope this is as bad as it's going to be for them at their home ground.
Hard tyres, he was trying something different, but the car looked all out of shape through... something fell off the back of the car coming into Ascari on the previous lap. And he's got, the temperatures on the rear left are sky high. There was a fire in the brake.
No more brake pedal. Brake line exploded.
Yeah, and he's out of the race. So that's a shame for Sebastian Vettel. Bottas is under pressure here from Verstappen, and I don't know if Bottas is within a second of Ricciardo. It's very tight. I think he just about is to get some DRS to defend. It's just not looking good at all.
He hasn't got it. He hasn't got it, Valtteri Bottas. He's not within a second of Ricciardo, so Verstappen is able to get the extra straight line speed coming down into the Rettifilo chicane, but he's not able to make a move just yet. But Bottas dropping a little further back from Ricciardo, now maybe just in the process of looking after his tyres, basically, because they want to go long, so maybe he'll be a little bit less aggressive, if that's possible, on lap 7 of 53.
Yeah, if you're Bottas and you are a bit of a soft touch in battle, and he's been done by Sainz off the line, Norris, amazing move from Norris around the outside of the second chicane, that was fantastic. Then Perez got him, then Ricciardo got him, then Verstappen nearly got him as well. He's down in 6th place. He's resettled into the Grand Prix. They're on a strategy. They want to go long. His car's fine. That's the good news. The one guy you don't want to be lingering just behind you, though, is Max Verstappen. They're the two that are fighting for second in the championship, Bottas and Verstappen. And Verstappen's so aggressive. He's not going to be afraid to chuck in a lunge and risk crashing with Bottas.
Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari returns to the pit lane at very, very slow speed because he's got no brakes, and that is the end of the day for the 4-time world champion who's leaving Ferrari at the end of this season. His last race as a Ferrari driver at Monza, and he is out on lap 8 of 53 with Lewis Hamilton leading the way, 4.2 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz, 3 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Norris now has been caught by Sergio Perez, and then Ricciardo is 5th. Bottas is 6th, Verstappen 7th, Stroll, Ocon and Gasly, the rest of the top 10. Alex Albon's been given a time penalty for not leaving a car width to the edge of the track, so I don't really know what that was for. We didn't see that because that wouldn't have been the Gasly incident at turn 1. So somewhere out there, Albon's been in a battle.
Down in 14th place after cutting that first corner, just behind Charles Leclerc. But yeah, we didn't see it. Somewhere he's got a penalty for himself as well. So he's had a tricky weekend. Red Bull have had a tricky weekend, and it continues, particularly for Albon. Verstappen in 7th place has still got something to offer in this race, still right behind Valtteri Bottas. But they're all in a big train behind Lando Norris, who's in 3rd after that great move. It's all working perfectly for his teammate Carlos Sainz. I've been 2nd place, as high as he's ever run legitimately in a Formula 1 race. And Sainz now got 3.5 seconds back to his teammate. He's lapping half a second quicker on the last lap. It's looking very good for him.
There's a yellow flag in the first sector, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But Bottas is sort of defending, coming down the back straight. Verstappen behind him very much. He's looking racy, isn't he? He's in attack mode, ready to get going in this fight. But why is Bottas pulling out of the slipstream of the other cars?
Looked like he was trying to just cool the car. Maybe temperature issues for Mercedes and Bottas, not expecting to have to follow this amount of cars this closely. And he was just not taking the slipstream. The slipstream would make you quicker, but Bottas wasn't defending. He was just trying to get some cool air over his car. So maybe that's a sign of a bigger problem for Bottas. Trying to overtake and not take a slipstream is nigh on impossible.
Wicket in the cricket, Ellie.
Yeah, Australia have lost their 2nd wicket, 3 for 2, and we're only halfway through the 2nd over of the innings, and Mark Wood has struck in the same way that Jofra Archer did. Jos Buttler has 2 catches behind the stumps. Alex Carey is out for 2. Aaron Finch still there on 1. Steve Smith on his way out. Australia 3 for 2 after 1.5 overs.
Full commentary on Sports Extra. We're on lap 9 of 53 here in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Hamilton leading 5 seconds clear of Sainz, who's 4 seconds clear of Norris, who's now coming under a lot of pressure in that 2nd McLaren from the first of the racing points. Sergio Perez in 4th, looking very strong at the moment.
Perez right underneath the rear wing of Norris. Norris had to defend at the 2nd chicane, and he's under pressure now from Perez. Half a second between them, and now they're coming to Parabolica. Perez will have the DRS and another chance to pass the young Brit for 3rd place. So let's see what happens. He's within a second, loses a little bit through Parabolica, as you'd expect, a fast corner that's difficult to follow, but now he'll get the DRS. Looks a little bit too far back to attack into turn 1.
Here they come down into the Variante Rettifilo, and yeah, Perez isn't going to be making a move this time around, but 2nd and 3rd for McLaren. Jenny, very strong performance.
Yeah, they'll be absolutely delighted. I've been listening across to the team radio, actually, and Lando Norris was on the radio a couple of laps ago just saying he thought he'd had contact, so he wanted the guys to check out the car, waiting for McLaren to come back to me to tell me if there is any significant damage on that car. I haven't seen too much, but I'll keep on having a little dig and find out what I can.
We've just seen a replay of what happened with Albon for his time penalty. For me, very harsh and a bit weird, but...
I mean, I don't want to hark back to last year, but
yeah, exactly.
Why is Leclerc not getting a time penalty for that one? That's even more the case, but I don't know why he braked so early. Grosjean came from about 15 car lengths back on the outside of turn 1. Albon was dithering on the way into the corner, not really attacking, not doing much, and Grosjean just sent one. It looked like he had a brake failure for a minute, how late he went compared to Albon, and Albon then basically swerved across the track, and he didn't leave a car's width. He didn't, so it was a penalty. why then Leclerc got a black and white flag for that last year? Of course, he was in a Ferrari at Monza, so it's a little bit different, and he was leading the race. But let's not get into that now.
Indeed. Across the line comes Lewis Hamilton to start lap 11 of 53, 6 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz, and then Sainz is 3.7 seconds ahead of Lando Norris, who has managed to stave the attack from Perez, but Ricciardo is the man under pressure. Down into turn 1, Valtteri Bottas is trying to pass him. Daniel Ricciardo, 5th place in the yellow Renault, with Valtteri Bottas in the black Mercedes right behind him as they come through the first couple of corners, but looks as though Bottas isn't going to be close enough now for a move into the second chicane. He had quite a good run on Ricciardo, but was not close enough.
As soon as Ricciardo drops away from a second behind Perez, Bottas might have a chance, but he's just constantly been there, 8 tenths away from Perez, who's still within a second of Norris. They're all bunched up for third, and it's just meaning that Bottas is really struggling to get a meaningful run on Ricciardo in the Renault for 5th place. He had a bit of a run there, not quite close enough for a move. I reckon if the roles were reversed and it was Ricciardo charging behind Bottas, we might have seen him send a lunge, but Bottas at the moment, there's still a long way to go, 42 laps. He's in a race for 2nd place, and he doesn't need to try anything too risky right now. Hamilton's going to win this, all being well. He's cantering away at the lead of the race. Nearly a second quicker that last lap to Carlos Sainz, probably managing his pace relatively as well. So Bottas is in a race to get back to 2nd.
Here they come in towards the Parabolica. Is Perez going to be close enough this time around? Through the final right-hander they come. He's going to be too far away to get the DRS this time. Verstappen's very close to Bottas, just half a second away as they come down the start, finish straight, hitting 220 miles an hour before they get onto the brakes into turn 1. Bottas not quite close enough. More Nations League action coming up later on this evening. Let's check in with Juliet Farrington, who's at Cardiff City Stadium.
Cheers, Jack. 30 gone. It's Wales 0, Bulgaria 0, and Wales starting well, but Bulgaria have come alive. They're causing a few problems. Had the best chance of the game as well just a few moments ago. Ivanov with the shot that went close. Not great, though. It's Wales 0, Bulgaria 0.
Thank you, Juliet. It's full-time at Arsenal as well. Jackie Oatley.
It's finished Arsenal 6, Reading 1 in the FAWSL. Dan Carter with a late consolation after a Zinsberger error, but 5 Dutch goals, hat-trick for Jill Roord, 2 for Viviana Miedema, Kim Little with an early volley. Should have been many more for Arsenal. So much for this 2-horse race we keep hearing about. Arsenal 6, Reading 1.
We're in a 1-horse race here, so as well. So Hamilton leading the way, 7 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz in the Italian Grand Prix. Sainz is doing a really good job for the McLaren team. Lando Norris is in 3rd, the young British driver. Then it is Sergio Perez, 4th for Racing Point. Daniel Ricciardo in 5th. 6th is Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes, who after a horrible start, he was 2nd on the grid, 6th by the end of the first lap. He's now still there and under pressure, Jenny Gow, from Max Verstappen.
Yeah, Verstappen's been on the radio and he's saying we're really stuck here. It seems like that little trail of cars, just nobody can get past the car in front of them. They're all using a tow from the car in front. It looks really messy. But one thing it's worth saying is a lot of the teams are struggling with their tyres. The rear left seems to be overheating a lot, and Lando Norris is one of the drivers in that McLaren struggling at the moment as well. So looking like the pit window could open within 3 laps.
Yeah, interesting to see who blinks first in that one. Bottas has already been told that he's going to go long, although it feels like if he was the first to go out of this group, he'd have a big enough pace advantage to undercut them all.
I don't know if he wouldn't, though, because they'd cover him the next lap. He would undercut Ricciardo, but he's got nearly 2 seconds to find on Sergio Perez, who would immediately pit the next lap, as would Lando Norris, and he'd be back in this situation in a DRS train, but with no more strategy gambles to take. It's the only thing he can do right now is go long. What he really needs is Perez or Ricciardo to try and undercut Norris, and that will throw everyone else into the pits, and he'll have some clear air to exploit the pace of the Mercedes. But I tell you what, right now, he's drifted away from the DRS zone of Ricciardo ahead, and Verstappen is close again, just still sniffing around behind him, and he might have a chance. The Red Bull doesn't look that quick in a straight line, though.
Through the Parabolica, the final corner, the long 180-degree right-hander that takes them back out onto the start, finish straight at Monza, past the old, iconic, empty grandstands, and down up to 220 miles an hour again into the first corner at the Varianti, the Rettifilo. Hamilton still leading, 8 seconds clear of Sainz in 2nd. Norris is 4 seconds back in 3rd position. Then it's 1.4 seconds back to Perez. So Norris has done a good job to stave off that attack for the time being for Perez. Ricciardo is less than a second behind Perez. Bottas is more than a second behind Ricciardo in 5th. So as a result, Verstappen is getting the DRS, but he's not close enough to make a move yet.
Hamilton's a second a lap quicker than all of this bunch that Bottas is in. That shows the pace of the Mercedes. The two of them are very evenly matched, Hamilton and Bottas yesterday. But in this traffic, Bottas is not able to go any quicker. He's not able to catch Ricciardo. And he's just suffering right now. 15 seconds away from the race leader. 7 seconds away from second place man Carlos Sainz, who's now got 4 seconds to Lando Norris. This is looking like a really great chance of a podium at an absolute minimum for Carlos Sainz. He's having a cracking drive. And it's all helped by his teammate Lando Norris bunching up a string of cars that leads from 3rd really down to Max Verstappen almost, including everyone else in the field down to Kimi Raikkonen in 12th place.
Now, Lando Norris needs to be careful. He's just been told by his race engineer if he goes wide at turn 11 again, he'll get a penalty. This is track limits. We saw it a lot in qualifying, but in the race it also counts. You must keep the car on the track at turn 11.
Yeah, that's actually very important that Norris manages to do that. You're right. Bottas is just 4. Here's Hamilton's radio.
The short shift is okay for tyres, but it won't be as good for the PU, so just think about that.
Okay, so Hamilton being told the short shift is okay for the tyres, and but not for the power unit. So basically, he is not using it to the full rev range, and is that to what, try and avoid wheel spin?
Yeah, it's to try and avoid wheel spin to help the rear tyre. So that shows that Hamilton is right now not exploiting everything that the Mercedes has got to offer. Just managing the tyres, managing the race. He's got 9 seconds to Carlos Sainz, who's maybe doing similar right now in the McLaren, driving a very good race, driving away from his teammate, just stretching that gap by a couple of tenths each lap. And he can just focus on his own race, unlike Norris, who's got some bright cars just behind him, the pink Racing Point and the yellow Renault in 4th and 5th, Perez and Ricciardo. And then it's the fast guys of Bottas and Verstappen, but they're still unable to do anything. Lap 15, the pit stop window is almost upon us, though. This is where it could get tasty.
Lap 16 of 53, Hamilton leading. He's now 10 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz in 2nd place. The McLaren mechanics all decked out in their orange overalls and blue helmets sit around on fold-up picnic chairs in the garage watching the screens, not leaping into action just yet. Their cars running 2nd and 3rd, Sainz and Norris. Bottas is going to be under a bit of pressure here from Max Verstappen. He's gone in a bit defensive into the first corner. That gives him not a great run out of the first chicane. And if Verstappen can get DRS here, he could be close.
Move offline when you can.
Move offline when you can. It's the
temps around the lap is turn 11.
Message. So Bottas is struggling with the temperature of his car. He's being told to move offline, get some cool air into the car. If you sit behind the F1 car in front of you, you're getting hot air that's coming out of their engine. So Bottas, and as soon as he moves offline, he's losing out on the slipstream, which is why he's under pressure now from Verstappen. Bottas 6th, Verstappen 7th.
Verstappen was just 3 tenths away there, really making Bottas defend into turn 1. Potentially Bottas didn't need to defend there. Verstappen was a bit further back. But that compromised his exit, and he was very close, the Dutchman, to the back of the Mercedes for 6th place into the 2nd chicane. Bottas can't afford to lose another place, because if he loses Verstappen, that's a car that could maybe keep him behind all race. And in terms of race pace, it's very difficult. We've seen the Red Bull be quick and might try and go long with Valtteri Bottas. I still think in the long run, Ricciardo and Perez, if they pit and they go on a different strategy to Bottas, the Mercedes should have them over the rest of the race. But it's when they pit, because we're on to lap 17 and still no sign of anyone pitting. Everyone's still ticking along at good pace ahead.
And is that going to be an area, Jenny, where McLaren are a little bit nervous? Running in 2nd and 3rd. Here's Bottas' radio. Bottas saying, I can't race with these engine settings. It's a joke. Do you think that's going to be engine mode related, or that's just the situation they're in at the moment, trying to keep it cool?
It must be trying to keep the car cool for Bottas. Albon side by side with Leclerc.
Yeah, Leclerc trying to go around the outside of Alexander Albon, coming down into the Della Roggia chicane, not quite able to make the move. In fact, it's Albon who's 13th now and Leclerc in 14th position. So Albon has gained that place, my apologies, and is more misery for Leclerc, who's now 6 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo, who's in 12th position, a Ferrari customer team, and the other Alfa Romeo right behind is Antonio Giovinazzi, who's going to try and make a pass. They're on different tyres. They're on the mediums is Antonio Giovinazzi. Leclerc is on the softs, but very, very tough day for Ferrari. But as I was alluding to a moment ago, Jenny, second and third for Sainz and Norris. They're looking strong, but the pit stops are going to be crucial.
Yes, and McLaren will be nervous. They've had issues all this season with their pit stops. They've been slightly muddled at times. They've got new technology this year, which should mean that they can do a faster pit stop, but they've got to get their heads around it. So nervous times for McLaren. They've got to get these pit stops sorted. And just one note, Mercedes have got back in touch with me. I asked about the temperature of Bottas's car. They say the car's running much hotter than Lewis's. Not sure if it's just simply traffic or something else at the moment.
And you wonder when, so the F1 teams, as Leclerc comes in to make a pit stop off those soft tyres, there's new rules this weekend, so you can't change your engine mode throughout the race to higher, lower power settings. You have to stick one at the start of qualifying and then carry on use that throughout the rest of the Grand Prix. And the teams do very complicated calculations to basically find the peak performance where you can run it the hardest you can without it blowing up, basically, over the course of the Grand Prix. And I just wonder whether Mercedes, because of their dominance this year, take into account the fact that they won't be running in the middle of a train. They won't be stuck in traffic because, well, they shouldn't be, like Lewis Hamilton isn't. And they've played that into their engine settings. They now can't change them when Bottas is stuck in the middle of the pack.
And how often have we seen it when they are in the pack that they just breeze past cars? Yeah. Barcelona's a very difficult circuit to overtake, but Bottas just breezed past Lance Stroll as soon as DRS was available and made the move look easy in the end. He made it back after a poor start in Hungary as well with a little bit more difficulty. But right now, the DRS train that's ahead of him, in fact, all the drivers ahead have just dropped away from DRS range of the car ahead. So Ricciardo is 1.2 away from Perez, who's 1.4 away from Norris. Might be a chance if Bottas can attack, but with his engine temperatures hot, Mercedes don't seem to be able to risk Bottas closing in. He's 1.6 away from Ricciardo right now.
Hamilton leading the Grand Prix, 13 seconds clear of Sainz. Then it's Norris, Perez, Ricciardo, Bottas, Verstappen, Stroll, Ocon and Gasly, the top 10. Let's get the latest from the Ageas Bowl for the T20 cricket. Eleanor Oldroyd.
Yep, Steve Smith is out, run out by a long way. He just walloped Tom Curran for a huge 6. Very next ball, aiming to go for a quick single and run out. So Australia now had recovered from 3 for 2 after 2 overs, but they're now 30 for 3. Aaron Finch, the captain, is the man who's holding it together. He's hit a rapid 27, but Steve Smith is out for 10, and Australia are 30 for 3 after 5 overs.
Kevin Magnussen in the Italian Grand Prix has just broken down. He's pulled over at the side of the circuit on the exit of the Parabolica. The marshals are going to come and push the car back out of the way, but I think they're going to wait for a virtual safety car here, would be my prediction. So we might see a flurry of pit stops, although the drivers battling in the top 10 have just passed the incident point, so it might be over before it's relevant. So out of the race is Kevin Magnussen. He joins Sebastian Vettel in retirement. Myself, Jack Nicholls, Jenny Gow and Jolyon Palmer with you for the Italian Grand Prix.
He said something broke on the car, Kevin Magnussen, and, well, that seems obvious. He's parked it up without even returning to the pit lane where he's right next to. So often we see virtual safety car in these instances, but I think Magnussen might have just pulled off at a sensible enough time. No marshal's going to retrieve the car just yet. They're all still behind the barrier.
My prediction is because they would be waiting for the full safety car that is now deployed, but it's not actually come at a particularly interesting time because everybody's coming through the final corner. Everybody now can come and pull into the pits.
Will Bottas, this might allow Bottas to stay out, get track position again, and Hamilton dives into the pits. Everyone else will probably follow him. Bottas, though, maybe can stay out and get track position and then try and make up all that time in clear air after.
Oh, it would be a tough ask, wouldn't it, for Valtteri Bottas? Hamilton in, the medium tyres go on, and Mercedes trying to see whether they were getting ready for Bottas as well. Hamilton is through the pit lane, and the McLaren stays out then. Carlos Sainz stays out. Lando Norris stays out as well. So the McLaren's not pitting at what seems to be the obvious opportune moment, and now Sainz leads the Grand Prix for McLaren. Racy move there, and Perez and Ricciardo and Bottas all stay out as well. Wow. None of them have come in, neither's Verstappen. I'm getting very high-pitched and confused. And McLaren are in the pits. They're there with 4 tyres, with 8 tyres, to be honest, ready to go. It looked like they were ready to pit both cars. Neither have come in.
But no one else pitted.
Wow.
So Sainz leads the race from Lewis Hamilton, who has pitted.
Hamilton's going to win this by a day.
Yeah, this is the time now where Bottas should pit and do something different. But no one pitted. Why not? It's a free pit stop almost. We've had other cars behind pit. Antonio Giovinazzi screeches away in the Alfa Romeo. Pierre Gasly pitted just before the safety car came. But no one else. Alex Albon in 11th place didn't pit off the soft tyres.
Wow. Well, Jenny.
It's very confusing. The pit stop time here that you lose is huge. It's the biggest of the season, really. They reckon it takes about 24 seconds to come in, change all 4 tyres and get you out again because of the design and layout of that pit lane. So if you can come in and lessen that time under the safety car, they reckon it halves the time, then it kind of looks like a no-brainer. But they could get away with this because they're having to push Magnussen's car all the way to the right of it.
I've just seen a notification. Pit lane entry closed. Says race control. 10 seconds after the safety car was deployed, it was declared that the pit lane entry was closed. That's why no one's pitted. Magnussen's broken down right at the entry to the pit lane. Have Mercedes made a massive error here with Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, when has he pitted when the pit lane entry is closed? And that explains, that's the only thing that can explain why no one takes this perfect opportunity to pit, apart from Lewis Hamilton, who's given away the race lead. He's in 2nd place, and he's under investigation
for entering the pit lane when it was closed. Hamilton could be in big trouble here. This could be drive-through penalty levels of... it's not going to be a little warning or a 5-second penalty or something like that. That will be maybe even a stop-go penalty. This could be very, and Antonio Giovinazzi is under investigation as well. This is going to be a severe penalty for Hamilton if he did come into the pits when it was closed, which it looked like he did.
I can't quite understand why the marshals, instead of pushing the car back of Magnussen to behind the marshals' post where they were, are pushing it all the way down the pit lane. That is a really odd decision, because he pulled it in quite a sensible place, Magnussen, but they've taken the longer route, which has shut the pit lane. What is going to be the penalty for Lewis Hamilton then? He's still in 2nd place. If it's a drive-through, he's still the favourite for the race. Everyone else has got to pit and they've got to stop for tyres, whereas Hamilton's got to come through and not stop for tyres.
That's true.
Anything more serious, and
well, unless the rest of the field can now pit while the safety car is deployed on the sort of final lap. So a fascinating development here. We'll keep an eye on it, but let's get an update from the Nations League. It's half-time in Cardiff. Juliet Farrington.
And this won't take very long for you. It's Wales 0, Bulgaria 0. Just the one shot on target for Wales. Gareth Bale, it was a free kick towards the end of the first half. It wasn't even one of his best. That sums it up. Wales 0, Bulgaria 0.
Concise, I like it. Thank you, Juliet. We are under safety car conditions at the Italian Grand Prix. Now, we're just getting a replay of Hamilton coming into the pit lane. There's no light at the pit lane entry. At the pit lane exit, there's a red light that tells you if you can go onto the track, or a green light that says the opposite, obviously. But there's no light at the entry to the pit lane, so it just depends when they announced that it was closed or not. And now the pit lane entry is open, and as a result, diving into the pits goes Carlos Sainz. Norris is following him in. He's trying to keep enough of a gap. Oh, there's going to be contact there. Norris hammers on the brakes to get down to the pit lane speed limit. Perez almost goes into the back of him. McLaren get rid of Sainz. Into the pits now comes Norris. Is he going to lose time? It's going to be a frantic race in the pit stops here. The order was Sainz, Norris, Gasly. Now, as they emerge, it's getting very tight, and Perez, I think, has had quite a slow... No, he's lost out to Ricciardo.
And Bottas has jumped Ricciardo and Perez in the pits. Mercedes have had a dream of a pit stop to jump 2 cars.
Wow. So they've had a dream pit stop for one car, but maybe not for the other. The Hamilton incident is still under investigation. Safety car will be coming in this lap. So the order, well, I'll give it to you in a couple of moments when everybody's joined up and lined back. We're not even racing here, but it's some of the most high-octane stuff we've seen in the last 5 Grand Prix. But anyway, safety car in this lap. Hamilton is leading. Stroll is second, but hasn't pitted. Gasly is third. And
has pitted. There's loads of the people that pitted before the safety car are quids in. Gasly's legitimately third. Giovinazzi and Raikkonen are fourth and fifth.
Yeah.
Leclerc's sixth. Latifi from 20th is seventh, and they don't need to pit again.
Wow. So we're just getting a replay of it was a slow pit stop for Sergio Perez. They couldn't get the right front tyre off. And then it was very close with Daniel Ricciardo on exit as Ricciardo tried to go side by side with Bottas. So safety car in this lap. Hamilton leads the race. Lance Stroll has not pitted. Stroll is in trouble for Racing Point. He's going to have a tough afternoon now, but he's second. Gasly is third, having stopped. Giovinazzi fourth, Raikkonen fifth, Leclerc sixth, Latifi seventh, Sainz eighth, Norris ninth, Bottas 10th, Ricciardo, Perez, Verstappen, Ocon, Kvyat, the rest of the top 50.
All those slow cars are going to help Lance Stroll. They're going to help Lewis Hamilton because the Sainz, Norris, Bottas, Ricciardo, Perez have got to clear about 6 cars that are slower but don't need to stop and will race them for position. It'll allow Hamilton and Stroll to build big gaps.
The race gets back underway. Hamilton is leading. Stroll is second, but has still got to pit. Then it's Gasly in third. All of a sudden, Charles Leclerc is fighting, trying to get past the 2 Alfa Romeos. He tries to get them both in one swoop, and he manages to achieve that. Both McLarens are now trying to get past Nicholas Latifi's Williams. Leclerc's into 4th place.
Verstappen trying a move on Sergio Perez further back. Don't know if he made it through or not. He's around the outside of turn 1.
Perez is in trouble. Perez might have had to take to the escape road because he's dropped all the way down to 16th position. Hamilton still leading. Stroll in 2nd place. Verstappen now trying to get up ahead of Esteban Ocon. He's there in 12th position, and Ricciardo is fighting him as well. Ocon's now having to defend vigorously from Daniel Kvyat in the AlphaTauri behind him. Perez has dropped then all the way down to 15th, having been right behind the 2 McLarens previously. Lap 24 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix.
I think as Verstappen passed Ricciardo as well. Wait for them to come through. No, Ricciardo's tucked in behind the Williams and Latifi. He'll try and pass around the outside of Ascari. That's a brave one. But we've got slow cars so out of position. It's chaos on this first lap. The faster cars on new tyres, desperate to come through without losing any time because they've got real hustlers just behind. Verstappen just still tucked in behind Ricciardo, who's still behind Latifi.
So Hamilton sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and Charles Leclerc's had a big crash. Flies into the barriers at Parabolica. A heavy impact for the Monegasque racer. That'll bring out another safety car, and there must have been contact going into that corner.
Or no brakes. Maybe no brakes for Leclerc. Vettel retired with a brake failure.
He went in so fast.
He went in really, really hard to the barriers at Parabolica. Way through, off the tarmac runoff, through the gravel and hard into the barriers. He's okay. That's the good news. The barrier's coming right up and over the front of the car, resting on the halo. Huge impact for Leclerc. That could have been a brake failure, potentially, the speed he went in.
It feels like he's quite a long way around.
Okay.
Yeah, was a big crash.
So Leclerc hauls himself out of the car. It feels like he was a long way through the corner for that to be a brake problem.
Possibly. There were cars around him. It actually had a great part of the race just there, passing 2 Alfa Romeos up in 4th place. Let's see what did happen then. He's on his own into Parabolica. No, he's okay. He's just lost it on power on the hard tyres, and it's driver error then. No brake failure at all for Leclerc. He's just slowed it down okay. And then on the power, he's just tried to get on the gas for the long straight afterwards, and it's had a bit of a fishtail. He's overcorrected, and he's gone straight on into the wall. So, car all fine before, but it's certainly not now.
So, safety car deployed once again at the Italian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton is leading, but he is under investigation for entering the pit lane when it was closed. All of the other cars did not, except for Antonio Giovinazzi.
10-second stop-go for Giovinazzi.
Okay, so Antonio Giovinazzi given a 10-second stop-go penalty for entering the pit lane when it was closed. Surely the same is going to tick through to Hamilton unless he was close enough that he made it through before the pit lane was officially closed.
Oh, this is a tough one. That must be the case. Otherwise, the stewards, why would they give Giovinazzi that penalty and not Hamilton? At the moment, it doesn't say no further action for Lewis Hamilton either. Giovinazzi, that's a huge penalty. 10 seconds stop go.
Well, to be fair, it's a huge infringement. It's not one of those, you probably shouldn't do that. Here's Hamilton's radio.
Are we going to get a penalty?
I believe we will get a penalty.
So Pete Bonington reckons they will get a penalty. A 10-second stop-go penalty, red flag. They've red flagged the race. They are going to have to do a lot of repair work, I would suspect, to that barrier where Charles Leclerc went in. Both Ferraris out of the Grand Prix at their home race in Italy. The red flag is out. Lewis Hamilton will be leading the Grand Prix. Lance Stroll second, Gasly third, Raikkonen fourth, Giovinazzi fifth. Sainz, Norris, Bottas, Latifi, Ricciardo, the top 10. Then it is Verstappen, Ocon, Kvyat, Perez, Russell, the top 15. Albon, Grosjean, the 17 drivers still out there. Leclerc out of the Grand Prix after a big accident. Kevin Magnussen broke down in the Ferrari, and Sebastian Vettel retired with a brake failure earlier on. But the red flag is out, and we think, Jolyon Palmer, that Lewis Hamilton's going to have a stop-go penalty here.
Well,
the
Mercedes
team do.
think that he's going to have a penalty.
Was the light on when I came in?
We believe there was a light panel on the very left-hand side of turn 11.
Okay, but the actual pit lane entry, there's no light.
Yeah, well, that's what we were talking about earlier. There is no light at pit lane entry. So red flag is out. Both Ferraris, Jenny Gow, out of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, and the highs and lows of being Charles Leclerc this afternoon, because I was listening across to his team radio, and as soon as the first safety car came out, he'd just pitted, and he was like, oh no, and he sounded absolutely heartbroken on team radio because he'd missed an opportunity. And then, of course, pit lane is closed, so no one else can come in apart from the two people that did, Hamilton and Giovinazzi. And so all of a sudden he's like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm in for a chance here. And then he crashes out and causes another safety car. So, it wasn't tough enough being a Ferrari driver coming into these two race weekends here, and then the 1000th Grand Prix for Ferrari at Mugello next weekend. But this happens as well. Oh, dear.
Yeah, wow. Real tough times then for the Ferrari team. Jolyon?
Giovinazzi's penalty is far from irrelevant. He was running 5th place here. So he was one of those drivers that pitting when the pit lane was shut, but it did launch him up the order to 5th place. We still haven't heard of a penalty for Hamilton.
Yeah.
Now,
you'd think it would be a no-brainer.
It's the same infringement. Hamilton was through probably about 30 seconds before Giovinazzi. So the question is, when did Hamilton come through? Oh, they've just dropped Leclerc's car when they're trying to pick it back up off the barriers for the high loader. It's a long job, that one. That's why we've got the red flag. But yeah, did Hamilton maybe come in the pits as it was being shut? That's, I guess, the only reason that the FIA are still looking into this. Because presumably if it's shut, then it's a no-brainer. It's the same penalty as Giovinazzi.
Yeah.
But because he was 30 seconds up the road from Giovinazzi, maybe he was closer to it being shut. Maybe there's a timing question mark about how quickly he did come in.
Well, we are under red flag conditions here at the Italian Grand Prix. Later on today, we'll be going to the Ageas Bowl in Southampton for coverage of the T20 cricket, England versus Australia. There is commentary now on 5 Live Sports Extra, and Ellie Oldroyd can keep us updated.
Well, how many runs will England be chasing Australia? Currently 53 for 3 after 8.1 overs, and we've seen a brilliant opening couple of overs from Jofra Archer. We have seen some big sixes. We saw a sensational run out, and we've seen possibly the worst DRS review I have ever seen. Archer unplayable in his first over, in which he took the wicket of David Warner, caught behind for a duck. He bowled a 95.8 mile an hour delivery at the start of the second over. of his second over. Australia were 3 for 2 after 2 overs, with Mark Wood getting Alex Carey for 2, also caught behind. And then Steve Smith hit a huge 6 off Tom Curran, but the very next ball he just played out to Owen Morgan at mid-on, and the England captain just diving, scooping and throwing the stumps down in one fluid movement. Steve Smith couldn't believe he was out, but he was clearly run out. But Marcus Stoinis has come in. He's hit some big blows already. He's 21 off 15 balls. Aaron Finch, the Australian captain at the other end, is 21 off 18 balls. It's been all action so far here at the Ageas Bowl. Australia 54 for 3 in 8.2 overs.
Thank you very much, Ellie. So drama now at the Italian Grand Prix. We are under red flag conditions, and Lewis Hamilton, the race leader, has been given a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. So that is going to cost him about 35 seconds. And the situation is that you have to take that penalty when the race gets going within a certain amount of laps. So Hamilton can't just drive, be 30 seconds up the road, and then come into the pits, serve his penalty, and it's fine. He's got to take that within 3 laps. Now, exactly how that is defined it'll be probably from when the safety car comes in, when the race gets back underway. But Hamilton is going to be a long, long way back in the order, 3 laps into this restarted Grand Prix. Lap 27 of 53. Let's get news from Leigh Sports Village. There's been a goal. Manchester United versus Chelsea in the Women's Super League. Vicky Sparks is there.
And it's Chelsea, the defending champions, who have taken the lead. And what a moment for Sam Kerr, the Australia striker. Missed a hatful of chances as they won the Community Shield at Wembley last weekend. But she's bundled home here after a fabulous ball in from the right-hand side. And Chelsea are 1-0 up at Manchester United.
Arsenal beat Reading 6-0 earlier on today at Meadow Park in the Women's Super League. Now, with the red flag out, there'll be a 10-minute warning, basically, before the race gets back underway. Peter Bonington, Hamilton's race engineer, has just come over to have a conversation with him, presumably, about the red flag infringement. And it's a Mercedes fault kind of one, isn't it? But it also could be super tight from when they are calling him into the pits and then it's announced that it is closed.
I'm sure it'll all come out after the race, but basically, yes, it's a Mercedes should be telling Hamilton not to pit or to pit. Presumably Hamilton got the message to pit, and that's why he did. Mercedes would have seen the message, or should have seen the message on the screen saying pit lane closed, but they must have missed it. Then we get into the timing again of when the pit lane was closed. If it was closed so late in the day that Pete Bonington, Lewis Hamilton's engineer, couldn't tell him to not pit, then that might be why we got this situation. But the situation is that Lewis Hamilton will be plumb last by the time he takes his penalty. Pretty much everyone else can go to the end of the race. Lance Stroll will lead the Grand Prix, but he will have to pit. So then we're going to have Pierre Gasly leading the Grand Prix from Kimi Raikkonen, Antonio Giovinazzi, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Bottas is going to be 6th or 7th, and everyone ahead of him, apart from Kimi Raikkonen, has never won a race.
I believe they can change tyres under red flag conditions. So we need to wait and see what happens here, because I thought they had changed that regulation, but Andrew Benson, the BBC chief F1 writer, is looking it up. Ed Straw, a Formula One journalist, has looked it up and says that it is still in the regs that you can change tyres. So in that case, Lance Stroll is sitting pretty for his first Formula One Grand Prix win.
Wow. I mean, we are going to have a thrilling second half of this race. We're only basically half distance. We're going to have a race split cleanly in 2. And it's going to be, if Lance Stroll doesn't have to pit again, then he's going to lead this race and go to the end. He's going to have 26 laps to do it. And his nearest solid rival, he'll have Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, who made Q3 yesterday and is a strong driver, particularly this year, looking really good. But he's in an AlphaTauri. Then he's got 2 Alfa Romeos blocking those McLarens that were looking good earlier on, and then Valtteri Bottas.
Tom McQuillan says, can we talk about the phenomenal decision by AlphaTauri to pit Pierre Gasly when it was only yellow flags before the safety car, using the hashtag BBCF1. And he's right, as soon as the yellow came out, into the pits came Pierre Gasly before the safety car was called for and deployed. So a great little gamble there. The McLarens could be in trouble here.
Lando Norris is under investigation for driving unnecessarily slowly when entering the pit lane, and he did that to try and create a gap to Carlos Sainz, his teammate who was just ahead. He locked up coming into the pit, and it was all to try and give himself a gap to Sainz so McLaren could double stack the two cars, and it worked for them on the track. They didn't lose a position. In fact, Perez and Ricciardo behind lost positions to Bottas, but that is being looked at. And
how did
Norris,
it look to you?
Well, he certainly was driving slowly. He wasn't up to full speed through the pit lane. I think we've seen some situations like that before, though, where it's been unpunished. Tough call. He's definitely driving slower than would be convention underneath the safety car conditions. Difficult to know, isn't it, in which way this goes. This is one for the stewards. Need to look back through historical cases to see when the last time someone actually got a penalty for that, though. It's quite rare it happens.
Well, we will, here on 5 Live, leave the Grand Prix for the moment. While we're under red flag conditions, they'll get a 10-minute warning in, as soon as possible. So we'll have a 10-minute heads up as to when the race is going to restart. If you want to stay with us, we'll carry on the BBC Sport website, and we'll be back on 5 Live when the race gets back underway. But now let's go to Ellie Oldroyd at the Ageas Bowl.
It's been a pretty eventful start to this second T20 international between England and Australia. Australia are currently 57 for 3 after 9.2 overs. They were 3 for 2 after the first 2 overs. Sitting alongside me is TMS commentator Adam Collins. And you were commentating those first couple of overs, Adam, on TMS. Jofra Archer particularly bowling sensationally in his first 2 overs.
Unplayably.
Oh, hang on. I'll switch you on. It's me who's got the technology wrong.
No, not to worry, Ellie. He was unplayable at different intervals at the start, wasn't he? At that pace. The average pace that he and Mark would bowl, that was over 90 miles an hour. And one of the Archer deliveries was up over 154 kilometres per hour in the new money and 95.5 mile an hour in the old. So you get a sense of just how challenging it was for both Australian batsmen out there, both picking up wickets. And then Marcus Stoinis, a good little counter-attack here, given the amount of scrutiny he's been under since Friday night when he wasn't able to stick the landing in that chase. But yes, the express pace of England, that's their plan A at the moment. They're going without a left-arm seamer, which we all expected coming into this series, given David Warner's comparative vulnerability against that particular style of bowling. But plan A is working so far. Yeah, Stoinis and Finch going at around about a run a ball at the moment. 23 off 18 for Stoinis, 23 off 23 for Aaron Finch. But David Warner out for his first duck in a T20 international since 2012. When you consider David Warner's record as well in recent times, I mean, it's quite remarkable how well he's played since returning from his ban. Of course, he was out of cricket altogether for 12 months after the sandpaper incident, but he's been utterly dominant. I think he's averaged over 100 in this format of the game since returning from that ban. So when you consider how important he is in terms of how they set up the structure of this team, they're able to play a bowler at number 7 because of the foundation that Warner and Finch and Smith lay. And at this stage, 2 of those 3 are already back in the pavilion. And we saw Steve Smith hitting a big 6 off Tom Curran, and then a sensational run out from the England captain, Owen Morgan. I genuinely think that was a product of the pace and the opportunities. It wasn't the first run out chance that England had created. There was an opportunity in the first over, but there were a number of errors, and I think you can bring it all back to the idea they were being hurried up inside the power play. Usually the power play is on the batsman's terms, but this was played very much on England's terms after Australia won the toss and elected to bat. So I think the Smith dismissal has as much to do with what he was getting up the other end as it did the actual delivery, where he pushed into the onside, took on the arm of Owen Morgan, who incidentally has been injured since and hurt a finger, which caused a fairly lengthy delay. But nonetheless, while he was out in the field, he did execute that fantastic run out at the non-strikers end.
Halfway stage of the innings, so 10 overs gone, 60 for 3 Australia. 6 and over is not a great run rate, a scoring rate in T20 cricket, but we just don't know what can happen. We're seeing a picture of Glenn Maxwell sitting on the Australian balcony as well, so Australia have big firepower still to come.
Yeah, and I can understand why they held Maxwell back in favour of Stoinis, because they know that Stoinis takes a while to get going, and in the circumstances of losing a glut of wickets inside the power play and needing to rebuild, it's probably okay for Stoinis to take some time to get himself in. But then with Maxwell in the back half of the innings, they know he can clear the ropes from the outset. So I think that's just a tactical play at this stage, but Maxi no doubt will be the next man in.
The reason we're talking cricket at the moment is because there's a red flag in the Grand Prix at the moment after a big crash. We'll bring you Jack Nicholls and Jolyon Palmer as soon as we find out when that race is going to restart. We're watching Adil Rashid bowling as well. He's gone for 8 off his 2.2 overs so far. We've also seen possibly the worst DRS review I have ever seen. Just describe what happened.
Well, it struck the middle of the bat, and Joss Butler from behind the stumps was enthusiastic that it was pad bat, but the review, when you watch it, I mean, it's comical. The ball.
Well, it wasn't ultra edge; it was ultra middle of the bat.
Ultra middle of the bat. You often see reviews from wicketkeepers who think that there might be pad bat, and that's understandable. I mean, we see that happen from time to time. But Butler has completely misdiagnosed what has happened there, and instead of thumping into the pad, it's thumped into the outside, instead into the middle of the blade.
It's just in a big 6 by Aaron Finch. I'm going to carry on speaking for a couple of moments because Adam Collins has got to go on Test match special duty, but Michael Carberry is going to stick his headphones and his microphone into the box. But it's been all action. So as a reminder, 3 for 2 after 2 overs, Australia. Jofra Archer, a delivery of 95.8 miles an hour, the first ball of his second over. Let's get an update from the Bob Willis Trophy. Kevin Howells is watching over there. Where are you? You're at Worcestershire, Somerset, Kevin.
Ellie, I've no idea where I am. You know that most of the time. No, I'm here at Worcester at New Road. It's the last round of qualifying for the Bob Willis Trophy final, which we played at Lord's in a couple of weeks' time. I'm watching the 2 teams at the top of the central group, and that's Worcestershire and Somerset. Somerset at the top of the group. Worcestershire trying, if they can, to win this game and take Somerset out of contention for that final. At the moment, Somerset are 166 for 6. It's been difficult batting, and Worcestershire have done well with the ball, and Somerset have lost 4 wickets for only 14 runs in 9 overs this afternoon, including Tom Abel out for 59. So it's Gregory and Byram, the not out pair. Gregory has found 2 sixes off successive deliveries an over or 2 ago, so 166 for 6. Just take up your time though with unofficial news coming through from Bristol in a game between Gloucestershire and Northamptonshire. In terms of the competition itself, perhaps not a lot riding on this. However, word reaching us that Gloucestershire, having got to lunch at 66 for 6, the players didn't come back out after lunch. It was nothing to do with the weather, and they've certainly had close of play called for the day, and unofficial reports that the game itself may be abandoned. Now this is again all unofficial, but it's due to possibly a COVID-related incident. Reporters there saying that they understand that a Northamptonshire player not involved with the game has tested positive, but with the test and trace implications for at least one player within the Northamptonshire dressing room. As I say, no official word on this. Nothing's coming out. We could do with perhaps knowing a little bit more about this officially from those involved, but that is the situation at the moment. Say certainly for the day the play has been abandoned. It may be for the whole game, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more detail on that a little later on this afternoon.
That's an interesting developing story, Kevin. Thank you very much indeed. Back here at the Ageas Bowl, Australia 69 for 3 after 11.1 overs. Finch is on 32 off 29 balls, and Marcus Stoinis at the other end 25 off 21 balls. Let's get an update from the Nations League. Wales against Bulgaria. Juliet Farrington.
Ellie, I'd love to tell you that there's lots going on in this Nations League match, but there really truly isn't. It's Wales 0, Bulgaria 0. We played 10 minutes of the second half, but there was an injury concern to Gareth Bale. He is out for the second half, so he's lasted longer than he did in the first Nations League match that Wales had when they beat Finland on Thursday night. He fell rather awkwardly on his knee, but a few minutes minutes later, he got back up. He's okay. He's still on the pitch. Wales look like they're going to make a substitution. They haven't as yet, but they are a lot more pacier in the second half than they were in the first. It's really been quite an awful game based on the first half. Not really that much to report from. So slow from Wales. And Bulgaria did have a lot more possession than we thought they would do, because they haven't got that cutting edge, but they are very well organised defensively as well. Wales struggling to find a breakthrough right now, but it's got a lot more pace in the second half, and hopefully Wales will find their breakthrough. But 56 gone so far in this match. It's still Wales 0, Bulgaria 0.
And let's get an update from the WSL, and Vicky Sparks watching Man United against Chelsea.
Yes, the defending champions Chelsea still leading in the sunshine here at Lee Sports Village with 5 minutes to go until half-time, and we have seen the best and the worst again of the Australia striker Sam Kerr. It's her goal that is the difference between the sides. A beautiful ball in from England's Fran Kirby on the right-hand side, and Kerr was there on the edge of the 6-yard box to bundle home. She had another goal as well, lovely finish, ruled out for offside, but as we saw at Wembley last weekend in the Community Shield, has dragged an effort wide. She missed a hatful of chances in that victory over Manchester City last weekend, and again it was in on goal. She really should have scored, but just dragged the shot past the post. So a mixed afternoon for her, but she will be so relieved that she has got on the score sheet after that performance at Wembley. And Chelsea on top since the goal as Kerr goes through into the penalty area. Can she find the finish? No, this time she shoots straight at Mary Earps in the Manchester United goal, but that was better from Sam Kerr. Good strike of the ball, and Earps did well to save it. And Chelsea have been on top since Kerr put them ahead. Manchester United, in their second season in the top flight, had a very impressive campaign, finishing 4th last year. A real challenge for Chelsea. Had a couple of chances with Jane Ross before that goal, but Chelsea in control at the moment, the defending champions, leading 1-0 against Manchester United, trying to respond as Arsenal beat Reading 6-1 earlier in the WSL. And the scores in the 2 o'clock games: Everton are leading 2-0 at Bristol City, and it is goalless between Brighton and Birmingham, and Tottenham and West Ham.
Just seen another boundary from the Australian captain, Aaron Finch, taking him on to 40. Marcus Stoinis, 22. Australia, 79 for 3. You get the feeling that a lot is riding on how Aaron Finch carries on from this point. But England, well, they made an amazing start in the power play here. Australia were 3 for 2 after the first 2 overs, but 79 and he's out. Chris Jordan takes the wicket of Aaron Finch, bowls him, just taking off at the bail. 40 for Aaron Finch. Australia, 79 for 4. That is a huge wicket for England and Chris Jordan. You can listen to ball-by-ball commentary on Test Match Special. You can watch it on BBC TV as well. Aaron Finch just playing on and taking out his own off-stump. Chris Jordan punches the air. Australia 79 for 4. The race is about to restart in Monza, so let's rejoin Jack Nicholls.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Yep, we are on lap 27 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. A miserable day so far for Ferrari. 3 cars have retired. 2 of them are the Ferraris. Vettel with a brake problem and Charles Leclerc with a crash. And Kevin Magnussen, his Ferrari engine broke down. So those are the 3 cars out of the Grand Prix. But Hamilton is in the lead. The race is about to restart. Lance Stroll is 2nd for Racing Point. Pierre Gasly is 3rd for Alpha Tauri. Kimi Raikkonen is 4th for Alfa Romeo. 5th is the other Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi. Sainz and Norris, the 2 McLaren drivers, are 6th and 7th. Valtteri Bottas for Mercedes, who started 2nd, fell down to 6th. Is Arab having a horrible day? He's down in 8th place. Latifi is 9th. Daniel Ricciardo is 10th for Renault. Then it's Verstappen in 11th, Ocon, Kvyat, Perez, Russell, Albon and Grosjean, the 17 drivers. But Lewis Hamilton has been given a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for entering the pit lane when it was closed. It was closed because Kevin Magnussen's car had broken down at the entry to the pit lane. The safety car was deployed. Hamilton pitted, but was not allowed to because the pit lane was closed. So he's got a penalty that will cost him about 35 seconds that he has to take within the first 3 laps of this restarted race. We'll be getting underway in 4.5 minutes time. Hopefully you followed all that. It'll become clear, I'm sure, as the race carries on. We're going to have about 45 minutes of racing left to go. Alongside me is the former Renault F1 driver Jolyon Palmer. Did I miss anything?
Lando Norris has been exonerated. He was under investigation for driving unnecessarily slowly before the everyone pitted in before the pit lane, and no further action for Norris. So he's in 7th place, which will be 6th when Lewis Hamilton takes a penalty, and that's good news for him, good news for McLaren. And they've got a chance of a spectacular result here. 2 Alfa Romeos ahead that are not very quick. Lewis Hamilton, who has to pit, take a penalty that will send him to the back. And then it's just Stroll and Gasly. We are set for the most unpredictable, random 26-lap race that I can remember. So, session is going to be restarting in 3.5 minutes' time. Really, really fascinating Grand Prix this. Now, people have been calling this year, let's have a reverse grid. Let's have reverse grids. I'm against reverse grids. They're not pure. For me, it's all a bit gimmicky. It's all a bit of a mockery. Jolyon Palmer is against reverse grids for the same reasons, I would say. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But actually, this looks like it might be quite fun. Yeah, this is not a completely reverse grid, but this is the equivalent of taking the grid out of a hat now, pulling it out of a hat. You've got...
And how soon do I have to take this penalty?
We will be taking it straight away. We have to do it within 2 laps.
So Hamilton being told that they will have to do it within 2 laps.
He doesn't sound happy, does he? He is fuming, I'd suggest, in that car. This was a race that was his for the taking. He was cruising.
Now, another new rule is that this will be a standing grid start, like how the race started before. The FIA have just confirmed no radio communications on roll-around lap to the grid. So the race will restart as it restarted. In the past, it would have started behind the safety car, but now the cars are going to basically go out the pit lane, drive around, line up on the grid, and we'll kind of start again.
Could this get any more exciting? What a great rule that has come in. It used to be a safety car start. You can't beat a grid start. That's the most exciting part of the Grand Prix. Anyway, we've got 2 of them in this Italian Grand Prix.
So that's Jolyon Palmer alongside myself, Jack Nicholls. We've got a minute and a half before we start the race again. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, and Bottas didn't do great stuff, nor did Verstappen, in fairness, but Bottas had a really poor start last time out, so he's got to make a decision in his mind. Is he going to make up for it this time, or is it all going to go to pot again? I've just been listening into Mercedes and their radio with Bottas. Now, they have tried to help him with the cooling issues that he was having first time out in this race, for the first 27 laps. They haven't solved it, but they have hopefully made it a bit better for him.
OK, so we're about to get going once more here on BBC Radio 5 Live. There is an irony here, isn't there? Here's Hamilton's radio.
You sure that's the best? We got nothing. We might as well just risk it, no?
Yeah, we're not going to be getting that gap anyway in 2 laps. I think we're just going to have to suck it up and just get on with the task in hand.
In 2 laps, I can get at least a 5-second gap.
Hi Lewis, you'll still be in free air when you stop. I completely understand. Trust me on this one. If another safety car comes out, we're toast. I need to get this stop in.
That's actually an interesting point from James Vowles, because on the radio there with Hamilton, because I was thinking, no, let him build up a bit of a gap and then take the pit stop. But his point is, you building that gap is not going to get you in front of any cars because they'll be so tightly packed. So it kind of doesn't matter if you build it. You're still going to build that gap later on in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's got to drive through the pit lane, then stop and wait for 10 seconds. And that's his penalty, basically. He's changed tyres, so that part's done. But it's basically a very long pit stop he's got to take, and regardless, he will be at the back of the grid, the back of the field.
So the cars making their way out onto the circuit again. We're about to get the restarted race in the next 2 minutes or so here on BBC Radio 5 Live in the Italian Grand Prix. Let's head to the Ageas Bowl, though, for an update with Ellie Oldroyd.
The dangerous Marcus Stoinis is out, and Australia are struggling a bit here. They're 90 for 5 after 13.1 overs. Adil Rashid taking the wicket. Lovely catch-up slip from David Milan. Stoinis out for 35 off 26 balls. Australia 90 for 5.
Half-time in Man United versus Chelsea. Vicky Sparks.
Defending champions Chelsea lead by a goal to nil thanks to Sam Kerr's close range finish. Galton went close with a header tipped away for Manchester United just before the break. But Chelsea in control overall. Manchester United 0, Chelsea 1.
Arsenal beat Reading 6-0 earlier on today at Meadow Park. So the cars are making their way around to the start-finish line. We're basically having a half-length Grand Prix with a mixed-up grid.
Cars are freezing, guys. 67 degrees.
That's cold. Really cold tyres for Carlos Sainz on the mediums. The Alfa Romeos were on a reverse strategy. They can now run the soft tyre, which will do 26 laps. We know that because that's what everyone else started on. They're going to have some grip off the line, yet they've got the slowest car in the top 5. Giovinazzi, remember, starts 5th, but has the same penalty as Hamilton. He's going to plummet to the back with Hamilton. But Kimi Raikkonen starting 4th is effectively 3rd. Is he going to have a sniff at doing something in the early laps on a soft tyre? Everyone else is on a medium, apart from Lewis Hamilton, who starts the race on a hard tyre, presumably so he can push absolutely flat out afterwards with no hint of degradation on that tyre.
In a season of one of the most boring Formula One races in it of all time, we are set for what could be one of the most thrilling. I got a huge smile on my face here. This is going to be great. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, I have to say. And just bear in mind the drivers. We don't know how this all works because we've not seen this restart process, nor of the drivers. And poor Nicholas Latifi and the Williams just saying, look, help me out here. What am I meant to be doing? Because they're not allowed communication with a team at this point. So this could go all kinds of crazy at the restart.
Wow. So even the BBC Chief F1 rider, Andrew Benson, got him on a little Zoom call here. He's nearly smiling. And let me tell you, that takes something. So the car's coming around the final corner now at the Parabolica. We're about to get going. We're on lap 27 of 53. So basically, a little over half the race to run. It'll take about 45 minutes to get to the end of this race if there's going to be no more stoppages or incidents. But with the way the grid's lined up, with the order that it's going to be, I wouldn't really guarantee that at all. We could be in for one of the most iconic Formula One races of all time.
And all starting from a standing start, right together, on potentially cold tyres as well.
Here we go then. Hamilton has been working so hard on this lap to get as much temperature into his tyres as possible. He's on hard tyres. Lance Stroll and Pierre Gasly are on the medium tyres in behind. Then the Alfa Romeos, then we think, are on the soft tyres. It'll all come together a little bit further around this track once the race gets back underway. The cars lining up. We've only got 17 to take this start. Vettel out of the Grand Prix. Magnussen out. Charles Leclerc's crash brought out the safety car that triggered this absolute carnage. Hamilton is starting on pole position. He's going to be last at the end of the first lap because he's got a penalty to serve for entering the pit lane when he wasn't allowed to. Stroll is alongside him on the front row of the grid. Gasly and Sainz are on row 2. The race gets back underway in Monza. Pretty decent start from Hamilton. Stroll's not got a good one. Coming right with him is the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. Hamilton's not got a great start either. And looking to the outside there, it's Gasly coming into turn 1. Stroll has dropped back to 4th position. Both Alfa Romeos have got past him, although he tries to hang it around the outside of Giovinazzi and keeps the place. Valtteri Bottas restarted this race in the middle of the order. He hasn't made a huge amount of progress just yet. Hamilton leading, Gasly second. To the outside goes Kimi Raikkonen. The Finn trying to get back past. Lock up from Stroll. He's straight on down at the second chicane, and he's going to lose a lot of places. Hamilton leads the Grand Prix, but he'll have to serve his penalty at the end of this lap.
Stroll actually didn't lose places on that part. He might lose one with Carlos Sainz up the inside and Lesbo 2. That's instinctive, and that's brilliant from Carlos Sainz. And now Stroll might suffer the Bottas issue early on. He's out of position, and now Norris attacks him as well. He's made a really bad start. Good start though from Gasly and the Alfa Romeos on those soft tyres.
Sainz has to defend from Lance Stroll. Stroll sends it to the outside of the Ascari chicane. That is an exceptional move from the Canadian. He gets a lot of criticism. He's only in the sport because his dad has a lot of money fundamentally, but that is a really excellent move to retake 5th position. Hamilton comes around the final corner, and the race leader, the championship leader, comes into the pits and he serves his stop-go penalty. So Pierre Gasly leads the Italian Grand Prix on merit, all by himself, out of the front. The 2 Alfa Romeos are 2nd and 3rd. 4th now is Carlos Sainz because he's just got back ahead of Stroll. Then it is Norris in 6th, Bottas in 7th, Ricciardo 8th, Ocon 9th, Kvyat in 10th position. Only one driver driver in the top 6 has ever won a Grand Prix before. That's Kimi Räikkönen. He's in 2nd place.
Bad start for Verstappen. He's down to 13th as well, so that's another usual front runner down in the bottom half near the back of the field. Sainz put another good move on Stroll, and this time has made it stick. No chance of Stroll coming back just yet. Norris got really wide of parabolic but kept Bottas behind him, so Bottas still in 7th, and then the 2 Renaults, Ricciardo ahead of Esteban Ocon. Pierre Gasly has a 1.2 second lead, and he's got 24 laps between this and his first win. Who's going to go and catch him? This race is a joke. 29 of 53. Pierre Gasly, the young Frenchman who was dropped from Red Bull last year, dropped down to their junior team, Alpha Tauri. He got a podium this year, did Pierre Gasly, as he now leads the Grand Prix, 1.3 seconds ahead of Räikkönen in 2nd. The other Alfa Romeo is Giovinazzi in 3rd, Sainz in 4th, Stroll in 5th, Norris 6th, Bottas. He's got to be the favourite, hasn't he, to carve through the order and win? Well, you would have thought that, but he made no progress earlier on, and he doesn't look like he's making any progress just yet. Remember, Giovinazzi has to take a penalty as well.
Yes.
That's going to elevate everyone else up a position. Here's Hamilton.
This 23-second gap to the pack.
Awesome.
Yeah, and there's 23 laps left in the Grand Prix, so he's got a second the lap in him, but Hamilton could finish this race last, to be honest. He might catch the back of Albon, Russell, Verstappen, but it's going to be a very, very tough afternoon for him. Gasly still leads, Räikkönen 2nd, Giovinazzi 3rd. Now, Giovinazzi hasn't served that penalty still.
He must do it this lap. He must do it this lap, and that's going to unleash Carlos Sainz into 3rd in a McLaren that was really, really quick earlier on, 2nd position, and the only driver, well, ahead of that gaggle behind, really, which was his teammate. So Sainz is going to be 3rd, then Stroll, Norris, and then Bottas in 6th. He's in the fastest car, we know that, but he's basically in with the same people that he couldn't make any inroads in earlier on, so he's got to do a lot of overtaking. And it's not on slow cars. The McLaren's been quick. He's got 2 of them ahead. He's got Lance Stroll in a pretty quick racing point. Sergio Perez qualified 4th yesterday. Then he's got Räikkönen, who should be slower in the Alfa Romeo. And then Pierre Gasly out front.
Lap 31 of 53 now. This is the into the pits comes Giovinazzi to serve his drive-through penalty. So the order now is thus. Gasly leads, Kimi Räikkönen 2nd, 3rd is Carlos Sainz, 4th is Lance Stroll, 5th is Lando Norris, 6th is Valtteri Bottas, 7th is Daniel Ricciardo, 8th is Esteban Ocon, 9th is Daniel Kvyat, 10th is Sergio Perez, and Jenny Gao, I'm going to ask Jolie, and I'm going to, in maybe the maddest race in Formula One history, I don't think it's too absurd to say that, who is going to win?
I'm going to take you back to 2008 when Sebastian Vettel was the man who won for Toro Rosso. I think Gasly could do it again. I've just spoken to the team at Red Bull, by the way. Max Verstappen has some damage on his car and he's come into the pits. He's had to retire from this race. I think he might have had contact with Perez. I'm just checking with them, but damage to Verstappen, so the end for the Red Bull car.
Palmer, one word, the winner in 40 minutes' time.
Gasly.
I think I'm going Gazzo as well. Here we go then. Gasly's lead 1.7 seconds now to Kimi Räikkönen in 2nd place in the Alfa Romeo, and Alfa Romeo won the first ever race around Monza back in 1950. Giuseppe Farina went on to win the title that year, and now Räikkönen is running in 2nd place. Carlos Sainz is 3rd for McLaren, 4th is Lance Stroll. Hamilton is still 15th and a long, long way off the back of the pack.
But he's 3 seconds a lap quicker than those ahead of him. Hamilton is going to roar up to the back of everyone else. Verstappen being out helps him out because that's a very aggressive other front runner that would have been sitting in the midfield waiting for him to attack somewhere. So he's 15th. He's got 5 places to gain to get back to the point. His teammate Valtteri Bottas still making no inroads. Another lap ticks down. He's behind Lando Norris, but Norris is further than a second behind Lance Stroll now.
Hashtag BBC F1. And briefly there, Italian teams are running 1st and 2nd. Alpha Tauri ahead of Alfa Romeo, although Alfa Romeo are run out of an operation in Switzerland, but you take the point. None of them are Ferrari. Both Ferraris out of the Grand Prix. The Ferrari could have been winning this race the way it transpired. Obviously, Leclerc crashed and that caused the chaos, but you get the point.
Bottas is looking racier now. Up behind Lando Norris for 5th position. And he is starting to look like he's going to attack for the first time in the race, really, since he dropped back on the first lap. He's within a second of Norris. Norris is more than a second behind Lance Stroll, and he could be in trouble. They come through Ascari, Bottas in the Mercedes. I mean, what a chance this is in the championship to get something back. Verstappen's out the race, Hamilton's down in 15th. Bottas is on for some points. How many is the question as he comes into Parabolica, and now he's got to get a good exit from here and have a run on Lando Norris into turn 1.
If Gasly wins this race, he's currently 12th in the standings. If he wins this race, he goes ahead of Albon and Leclerc in the championship points. But still, a long way to go. Well, not a long way to go, really. Lap 33 of 53. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just to update you, my hunch about Hamilton was right. I've just had it confirmed. He did go to see the stewards during the red flag break. He wanted to make sure that they definitely made the right decision. They showed him they made the right decision, so he had to serve the stop-go penalty.
Yeah, George Russell is up behind Romain Grosjean, trying to pass the Haas driver for 12th position. Nicholas Latifi is running 11th for the Williams team. It's the final race where the Williams family are running the Williams operation, and what a lovely end it would be if Latifi manages to sneak a point or two. What a kicker it would be for George Russell, because that would be 2 years in a row where he's massively outpaced and outclassed his teammate, but in the crazy race his teammate nicks a point. Russell still yet to score in his Formula 1 career.
They are going to have Hamilton coming through at some point. Alex Albon is the car ahead for Hamilton. He's basically last, minus Hamilton and Giovinazzi, who took that 10-second stop-go penalty. Albon is 14th. We've only got 16 runners left, with the 2 Ferraris, Verstappen and Magnussen, out of the Grand Prix. Some real front runners that are left to come through, basically, for the fringes of points.
Oh, Raikkonen all out of shape because he is under big pressure for second place from Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. Here's Sainz's radio.
Carlos, you can be patient with Raikkonen. You can be patient.
More worried about Gasly.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
Carlos, one at a time.
Sainz to the outside of Raikkonen for second place. Tries to go all the way around the outside of the Rettifilio chicane. Pulls it off with a lovely manoeuvre. The McLaren is up into second. The team told him, you can be patient. You can hear the team cheering at that move from Sainz. They said, you can be patient with Raikkonen. I don't care about Raikkonen, he says. It's Gasly. He's the one in the lead. I want to catch up to him ASAP. 4 seconds off the lead of the race now. Carlos Sainz for McLaren.
Brilliant move from Sainz. I was wincing as he turned in on the outside of Raikkonen. I thought that was destined for contact, but it was a really smart move there. Raikkonen on the soft tyres. He got really out of shape at Parabolica, and that allowed Sainz just a chance, and he did it on the brakes, really. Raikkonen was pretty committed into turn 1, but Sainz braved it, trusted Kimi Raikkonen not to understeer into him, and he's up into second. Race on then. Gasly's got some competition.
Lap 34 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix from Monza here on BBC Radio 5 Live. At this time, I would normally give you a summary of the race. For those of you just tuning in, it would normally be, yeah, Hamilton started from pole and here we are, but Hamilton started from pole, there was a crash, he entered the pit lane when he wasn't allowed to, he was given a penalty, he's now down in 15th position, his teammate Valtteri Bottas had a shocker of an opening lap, he's now in 6th place. Pierre Gasly for the AlphaTauri team, the team based in Faenza, who used to be Toro Rosso, who used to be Minardi even before them, are leading the Grand Prix. The team has had one win before, here at Monza in 2008 for Sebastian Vettel, when they were known as Toro Rosso. And history is repeating itself, albeit on a beautiful dry day just north of Milan, with the Italian Alps in the background, and Lance Stroll in the racing point is on the attack next on Kimi Raikkonen. He tries to go to the outside, they're wheel to wheel, Stroll sends it round the outside. That's a second lovely move today from Lance Stroll, although Stroll and Sainz now have both passed Raikkonen around the outside of the chicane.
Yeah, Raikkonen, he's been past there by 2 great moves, but he's been respectful, I have to say, of Stroll and Sainz. It just needs a little lock wheel, and he would have run one of them or the other off and out of this race from a podium position now. What odds would you have had on a Gasly Sainz Stroll podium in this Grand Prix? Unbelievable. Raikkonen's struggling then. He's dropping back. He's in an Alfa Romeo. It's not a huge surprise. The next car behind for him is Lando Norris and then Valtteri Bottas.
So the last win for the race leading team was in 2008 at Monza. The last win for the second place team, McLaren, was 2012, Jenson Button, Brazil. The last win for Racing Point must have been Giancarlo Fisichella at the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix. Jordan. Must have been, when they were Jordan. So the team and their current guys have never had a victory. Norris is now up into 4th place. Sainz quicker than Gasly on that last lap in the battle for the lead, but only by a 1/10 of a second. So he's not got a huge amount of speed, Sainz, compared to Gasly.
Still, Raikkonen drops back. Next man behind him is Valtteri Bottas, and still Bottas makes no inroads on those ahead. 6th position. He must make inroads on Raikkonen. Raikkonen's struggling. He's an Alfa Romeo that struggles to get points at the best of times, let alone running right at the sharp end of a Grand Prix. And he's got the almighty Mercedes of 2020 behind him in the hands of Valtteri Bottas. But Raikkonen's not the battle for Bottas. Sainz was aggressive. He thought, I want to go and chase Gasly. Bottas is in the fastest car, and he's bogged down in 6th place, which will be 5th if he clears Raikkonen next lap.
John Vincent and also Howard Horton getting in touch using the hashtag BBC F1 and email f1@bbc.co.uk. This is exactly the scenario where Bottas and Verstappen sort of have to capitalise. Like, this is the kind of Grand Prix where Hamilton has a nightmare, Bottas can win the race and halve the deficit at the top of the standings, but he's in 6th place and Verstappen is out of the Grand Prix. It's all falling together for Hamilton in the championship this year, even when it goes horrifically wrong.
Bottas might make it 5th right now as they go on to the start-finish straight. Raikkonen's got DRS though from Norris. Won't be easy for Bottas. Ferrari engine not super great in a straight line. Bottas sends it. Nicely done. Decisive stuff from the Finn. Not something I've said much before in my life, but that was good stuff from Bottas. Came from a long way back. Raikkonen, Jenny, down to 6th.
Yeah, and he's on the soft tyres. I'm surprised. They wanted to give it a go, obviously, and make him racy, but the soft tyres just not working as well as the others right now in this restart condition. So expect him to fall away. There's one other driver on the softer round, which is Esteban Ocon. He's on a used set of soft tyres, and let's see if he struggles as much as Kimi Raikkonen.
That 37.53 in the Italian Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly is leading the race for AlphaTauri. Sainz is closing in on him. He took 0.6 of a second out of him on the last lap. The McLaren in 2nd, Lance Stroll in 3rd for the Racing Point. Let's get an update from the cricket. Eleanor Oldroyd.
117 for 5 Australia. Now Agar is on 16, Maxwell on 13. 16.5 overs gone. So this is, you would think, an eminently chaseable target for England as things stand at the moment, but they are playing on a pitch that they played on a couple of days ago, so who knows what Australia's bowlers will do on this. 117 for 5.
Thank you, Ellie. Full commentary over on 5 Live Sports Extra. But now, Lewis Hamilton, having led the Grand Prix from the start, looking in control, a safety car came out. He came into the pits. He wasn't allowed to come into the pits. Got given a drive-through, a stop-go penalty, to be precise. He has now caught the back of the pack, and the first driver that he's got to try and get past is Alex Albon in the Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo is the next driver to get ahead of Kimi Raikkonen up the inside down into turn 1. Bottas is still keeping out of the dirty air of cars in front. He's still having to dip out here and there to try and keep the car cool. Hamilton in 15th on the back of Albon. How far can he climb up the train?
Well, Albon is stuck behind George Russell's Williams as well, so Hamilton's got the same problem as Bottas, where the car in front is following the car in front of that. They're all in a bit of a train, and therefore there's not such a big closing speed. Hamilton that lap not able to pass Albon into turn 1, not able to pass him into the second chicane either. And that's another lap gone by without any progress for him, though. We know he needs 5 places to get back to the points. He also needs 8 seconds on top of that to get back to the points. So there's a bit of a gap forming between Perez and Latifi, 3 seconds from 10th to 11th, and then there's just 5 cars in the way as well.
2020, an iconic year in many ways. Not a very iconic year in terms of Formula One, but this, the 2020 Italian Grand Prix, will go down in history as one of those races. 1996 Monaco, 1998 Belgium. That's the kind of territory we're in. In 40 years' time, people will go, well, I will go, to anyone who's still listening to me in 40 years' time. Remember the 2020 Italian Grand Prix madness.
Here goes Hamilton on the back of Alex Albon. This is a good chance for him to pick off 1 place. Albon looks in his mirrors. He knows Hamilton's there. Hamilton's going to have to lunge because the straight line speed's not great, and he doesn't lunge. He's too far back. Mercedes haven't got a good car in a straight line. They've not got the straight line speed. They're not used to having to overtake too much. They always command it from the front. Bottas is still stuck behind Norris. Hamilton's still stuck in 15th behind Alex Albon. 15 laps to go. Gasly leading. 3.3 seconds ahead of Sainz. So Sainz has these little bursts of speed, but he can't keep it up consistently. Gasly still holding the lead at 3.3 seconds. Lance Stroll still 3rd. Lando Norris is lapping at a pretty similar pace to him. Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault in 6th place. He's the quickest
driver that we have got on the track at the moment, Daniel Ricciardo. A 23.8 on that last lap, half a second quicker than race leader Pierre Gasly. He's closing in on Bottas. He was 0.8 quicker than Bottas on the last lap. So we'll keep an eye on that one, because can Ricciardo get racy with the Mercedes?
I bet Ricciardo would love to have a lunge on a Mercedes this year. 6th position, looking for 5th. What a moment that would be for him to pass a Mercedes in this Grand Prix. If he gets half a chance, we know Ricciardo likes to send in a big lunge. So we'll keep an eye on that. Bottas is stuck behind Norris, but he's not within DRS zone either. Norris is not that close. He's 3 seconds away from Stroll. But Bottas is really struggling to make any inroads. Hamilton isn't able to catch Albon. This is a better chance.
Side by side in front as Russell tries to get past Grosjean, and Grosjean makes a mistake, and Albon makes a mistake, skips straight over at the first chicane. He'll keep the position. Hamilton will get a bit of a run at him coming out down towards the second chicane at the Della Roggia. Now Russell is trying to get past Grosjean for 12th position. He's been trying for quite a few laps now, Russell. He's still not able to do so. Hamilton does get ahead of Albon then. So Hamilton will now join the Russell-Grosjean fight for 12th position. Paul Eaton asks, using the hashtag BBC F1, will the 2-hour time limit come into effect or not? It will not, because when the red flag comes out, the time limit stops. The Grand Prix are run to 53 laps or 2 hours, whichever comes first, and we'll definitely do the full laps. So Hamilton up into 14th place. Gasly still leads. Sainz, Stroll, Norris, Bottas, the top 5. Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Ocon, Kvyat, Perez, the top 10.
A mistake then from Alex Albon paves the way for Lewis Hamilton to get into 14th, and now he might make light work of the Williams and the Haas in front of him. He's right on the back of George Russell immediately. Got so much pace, but can he overtake? Albon ran off the road and gifted Hamilton the first place. Now he's got the Williams just in front of him of George Russell. And they're back onto the start-finish straight. The laps come around thick and fast, just 12 to go. And the gap at the front, 3 seconds.
That's former Renault F1 driver Jolyon Palmer with me, Jack Nicholls, in commentary. We're also joined, as Hamilton makes light work of George Russell, by Jenny Gow.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to overtake around this track. You need to go a second to a second and a half faster than whoever you're trying to overtake. And normally, Jack, you say, oh, he's popped open his DRS wing and over he goes. Well, the wings are so skinny here that it makes the effect of the drag reduction system that much weaker, so much harder to get around the car in front of you.
That 41 of 53, that's what Hamilton was struggling with anyway, with Alex Albon, not so much with George Russell.
I don't think Russell made it hard for him at all.
No, that's true.
Mercedes-affiliated George Russell. Mercedes have put him with Williams for this year and next year, and Russell really didn't make it hard for him at all. So Hamilton gets up to 13th, Romain Grosjean next, and Grosjean should be a little easier again in the Ferrari-powered Haas car with no car in front of him. Then is Nicholas Latifi, still running in a really solid 11th place, Latifi.
That 42 of 53, so 12 to go as Gasly starts another lap. 2.7 seconds the gap now. Sainz is closing in a little. Hamilton trying to overtake Romain Grosjean. He's not a million miles away from points, is he? But it's going to be so tough. He should be able to dispense of the French Grosjean this time across the line. Goes to the inside. Grosjean doesn't fight him too hard. And Hamilton breezes past, coming down into the Rettifilo chicane. Grosjean, as I say that, sends it in quite late on the brakes, but Hamilton makes the move. He's now up into 12th position.
You get the feeling everyone's enjoying playing with the Mercedes for once in this Grand Prix. Grosjean later on the brakes, but Hamilton with the track position on the inside, and that one was never in doubt. Nice, easy one for him. And the next one should be a similar situation. Nicholas Latifi in that 11th place will drop 1 place further when Hamilton catches him. 4 seconds he's got to make up, but he'd do that very, very quickly. I think someone's had a chip through the gravel, exit of the second chicane. A lot of gravel kicked up across the track, but everyone running on okay, so it didn't cost whoever it was too much time.
Pierre Gasly leading, Carlos Sainz second, Lance Stroll third. Let's go to the cricket, Ellie Laurdroyd.
And Glenn Maxwell is out for 26 off 18 balls, caught by Jos Buttler behind the stumps off the bowling of Chris Jordan. So another important wicket and a big time for Chris Jordan. 132 for 6 Australia now, and they are in, they've had 2 balls of the 19th over. So 8 more balls for Australia to try and get that target up for England. 132 for 6 after 18.2.
Sainz chips away a little bit more at Pierre Gasly. The gap 2.3 seconds between them now. Now here's the attack from Esteban Ocon, who's trying to get past Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen holding on to that position. Gasly leading the race. I tell you, Carlos Sainz is going to be gutted if he doesn't win this Grand Prix. He'll get his second podium of his Formula One career. Is Ocon going to get past Raikkonen this time outside of the Della Roggia chicane? And yes, he breezes past, but second podium of Sainz's career, second place overall, great result for McLaren. But they were running behind the Mercedes. Sainz qualified third on the grid behind the Mercedes. He's going to feel he deserves this win, and Gasly's lucked into it. He's going to be devastated if he doesn't win this Grand Prix.
I don't know. I think he's still second place is great, but he's got a chance. He's quicker than Gasly ahead, and he wants the win. We already heard that on the team radio. He's fussed about catching Pierre Gasly for the win. It's not about second for him today. It's about winning that race. He was second from lap 1, as you say. Hamilton then has dropped with that penalty. So this should have been Sainz's by default, but Gasly has lucked in, or AlphaTauri did a good job to pit him at the right time. And the gap, 2.6 seconds, 2.5 seconds as they come across the line.
I can tell you the radio from Sainz has been fruity. I can't tell you exactly what it says because it's too rude, but he was very, very unhappy about this situation. Since they've freed him up and he's gone to try and get Gasly, is in a better place. But yeah, he is fighting because he's angry in that car right now.
Lap 44 of 53, the Italian Grand Prix from Monza here on BBC Radio 5 Live. The little applause you hear is for Daniel Kvyat, who's just gained a place on Kimi Raikkonen. But Lewis Hamilton, who started from pole, dropped all the way to the back of the field, having entered the pit lane when he wasn't allowed to, is now carving his way back up the order into 12th place. The AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly is leading the Grand Prix, a team that haven't had a win in 12 years, a driver who's never had a win. He's ahead of Carlos Sainz in the McLaren, another driver who's never had a win, and the team haven't had a win in 8 years. And in third place is Lance Stroll, a driver who's never had a win, and the team haven't had a win in 17 years. So we're in for some kind of upset, that's for sure. Gasly leading, Sainz second, Stroll third, and Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard from Madrid, in second position, isn't making that much headway really on Gasly.
They matched each other the last couple of laps. Sainz a couple of tenths quicker on the last, 4 tenths actually as they come across the line. Good final sector, the gap down to 2.2. There's still game on, but the laps are ticking down. Bottas 7 tenths away from Norris. This is as close as he's been for 4th place for a while.
Bottas at 213 miles an hour, then stamps on the brakes to slow down to around 50 for the right-left chicane at the end of the long straight in Monza as the sun just begins to set a little bit, suggesting the early signs of autumn in the northern Italian countryside. Lewis Hamilton trying to pass Nicholas Latifi, not able to do so for 11th position. It's going to be super tough for Hamilton to get points here because the driver after Nicholas Latifi is Sergio Perez in the Racing Point, and that's a quick car and a quick driver.
But Perez is right on the back of Raikkonen. Raikkonen might be the one that falls out of the points completely to make way for Perez up to 9th and Hamilton up to 10th. Hamilton has got past Latifi around the outside of the second chicane. That's 11th place, 1 position away from the points. 8 laps and a second and a half to make up. He'll get there by the end of this lap. But then what sort of inroads can he make? He needs Perez to pass Raikkonen, and then he can follow him through. And he wants to try and catch all the drivers ahead when they haven't got DRS, when they're not on the tail of someone else. Oh, Sainz is within 2 seconds of Gasly. 1.8 seconds the gap. Oh. It's coming down, it's coming down.
Jenny Gao.
Yeah, Ricciardo's just having to ease off for a little bit. A couple of laps going a bit slower. He said that the tyres were a bit too hot, overheating, so he's going to give it a little break and then try again in his attack against Bottas.
Okay, so Bottas running in 5th place. Ricciardo is 6th. The top 4 are Gasly, Sainz, Stroll and Norris. Then Bottas in that 5th spot, Ricciardo 6th, Ocon 7th, Kvyat 8th, 9th is Perez, 9th is Raikkonen, 10th is Sergio Perez, but that might well change because Raikkonen is defending coming down the start-finish straight. Perez goes to the outside and swoops through into 9th place. Raikkonen into 10th, that could be an opportunity for Hamilton to try and get past. Bottas close to the back of Lando Norris as they come into the second chicane, the Della Roggia chicane down by the canal near the little district of Lesmo, which is the name that is given to the next 2 right-handers that follow, and Hamilton is going to be right on the back of Raikkonen. Raikkonen trying to fight back actually on Sergio Perez, wasn't able to do so. Hamilton trying to take advantage of that and move up into the points. Raikkonen just covers the inside line. We'll just watch until Hamilton makes this move stick, because it's going to be fairly imminent. They come out now onto the straight down towards the Ascari chicane, named after the great Italian racing driver Alberto Ascari, who was killed at that corner many years ago. Hamilton, though, gets to the inside line and gets through. He's up into 10th place, which would give him 1 World Championship point. There's been a goal at Cardiff City Stadium. Juliet Farrington.
Full time, and it's finished 1-0 Wales, and what a goal it was as well. In the last minute of added time, Neco Williams on as a substitute, his second international cap, heading home from Johnny Williams, another substitute, so 2 combining right at the end of this one. It's been a tough watch, but Wales don't care. They've won it. They've beaten Bulgaria in this Nations League game by 1-0.
Thank you, Juliet. More Nations League action later on today. We're on lap 47 of 53, though, in the Italian Grand Prix. The closing stages, Carlos Sainz is just 1.5 seconds from the back of Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, and there is going to be no holds barred in this fight for the win, because Gasly doesn't care. Well, he'd love a second place. Let's not beat around the bush, but to win the Grand Prix in Italy in an AlphaTauri would be, even if he goes on to become a 10-time world champion, it would be up there as one of his greatest ever achievements. He is going to fight to keep this lead.
How much pressure on his shoulders right now. Italian team at Monza, who would have thought they'd be 6 laps away from winning the Grand Prix? But it's Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. This time around, he's lost 2/10 the last couple of laps. He's upped his pace slightly, but he's still lost 1/10 to Carlos Sainz. The gap 1.4 seconds. Oh, this is tight. Lance Stroll's not too far back either. Stroll's been ticking along at a nice pace. He's within 3 seconds of Sainz, but it's a battle between Gasly and Sainz, unless something else goes pear-shaped between them.
1.4 seconds, the gap as they come through the right-hander. Once Carlos Sainz is within a second of Pierre Gasly on the straights, 2 of the straights, he'll get to open a flap in the rear wing, the drag reduction system. That'll make him quicker in a straight line, and that'll give him a little bit of an advantage to try and pass Gasly. Hamilton is on the back now of Sergio Perez as they battle over 9th place. I wouldn't be surprised if Perez can keep him behind for the next 6 laps or so, because the racing point very quick in a straight line.
It's a really similar situation now. Hamilton's behind the guy that qualified 4th, Sergio Perez. He's quick and he's in a fast enough car. Bottas is stuck behind Lando Norris, who qualified 6th yesterday, and he's in a similar boat, just been there the whole time and not able to pass Norris. And Norris has made no mistakes. They're running in 4th and 5th, and it's just kept Bottas at bay. Hamilton struggling to overtake. Mercedes don't have a great straight line speed.
Lap 48 of 53, although as I say that, Pierre Gasly comes across the line to start lap 49 of 53. 5 laps to go in the Italian Grand Prix, and Pierre Gasly is leading it, thanks to a very, very clever strategy call from the AlphaTauri team. They brought him in just before the safety car was deployed, and as a result, he was leading the race or he was running second when the race got red flagged. Hamilton had to serve a stop-go penalty for entering the pits when he wasn't allowed to. He's managed to climb back up into 10th position, but Gasly is leading. Sainz is now 1.3 seconds behind. Hamilton's going to make the move on Perez here. Goes to the outside of the pink racing point on the run down into the first chicane, and Hamilton now gets up into 9th place. Still, during all of this, Valtteri Bottas is making no progress in his Mercedes, still running in 5th spot. 1.3 seconds, the gap between Pierre Gasly in the lead and Carlos Sainz in 2nd place.
Gasly's just stabilising that right now. They've done the same lap time on the last lap. Sainz not catching on this lap either. And Hamilton has a couple of seconds to get on the back of Daniel Kvyat, Gasly's teammate, for 8th place now. Nice move from Hamilton, around the outside of Sergio Perez. Thought it would be hard, but he got a run and made it stick at the first time of asking.
Pierre Gasly weaving from left to right, coming down the back straight towards the Parabolica corner to try and just affect the slipstream that his rival for the win, Carlos Sainz, will be picking up. They come out over the line once more. We're going to have, surely, unless all 4 cars crash out in the last 4 laps of the Grand Prix, we're going to have a new winner in Formula One in the most unlikeliest of seasons in which to get a new race winner.
Consider sock switch to get inside DRS. Consider sock switch.
So sock meaning state of charge.
Energy deployment. Consider basically upping the energy deployment. A little bit more power on the straights to try and get within the DRS. Then he can open the gap in the rear wing. and find a little bit more speed that way as well. 1.1 seconds the gap, just 0.07 of a second quicker than Gasly, and the laps continue to tick down. It's one thing catching, it's another thing passing, and Sainz right now frustratingly just over a second away from Gasly. It's been a wicket in the cricket, Ellie Oldroyd.
Yeah, Ashton Agar run out by Jofra Archer. Archer's final over has been really quite expensive, bearing in mind how well he's bowled up to this point. 15 going off it, including 3 wides. So Australia with one more ball to go, 155 for 7.
Daniel Ricciardo in 6th place is now within a second of Valtteri Bottas, so a chance to use the DRS. We'll be bringing you more coverage of the cricket later on. If you want, it's in full commentary on 5 Live Sports Extra, but here we are about to have 3 laps to go in the Italian Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly in the Alpha Tauri is leading the race, and it's going to be so tough for Carlos Sainz to catch and pass him in the McLaren. It could even come down to the last lap of the Grand Prix. Gasly, the 24-year-old from Rouen in France, in his 56th race, is holding on to the lead at the moment, but Sainz is just 1.2 seconds behind him now. He's closing and closing, but he might just run out of time.
He actually lost a tenth on the last lap, but did quite a good first sector in the slipstream there of Gasly closing in. And he's frustratingly still over a second away. Here's his radio.
Copy. 3 laps to go. 3 laps to go, Carlos. Maximum focus now. No mistakes.
No mistakes is the encouragement to Carlos Sainz. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton's about to take another place. He's side by side with Daniel Kvyat, the Russian driver, Gasly's teammate, as they come through Curva Grande and down into the Della Roggia chicane. And Lewis Hamilton is through then. 8th position. He's going to serve a stop-go penalty and finish about 8 seconds back from his teammate here, Lewis Hamilton.
He could catch and pass Ocon potentially before the end of the race as well. Esteban Ocon in the Renault is just a couple of seconds ahead of Hamilton. He's on the soft tyre, but he's just done his personal best lap of the race, so no signs the soft tyre's going away for him. But Hamilton could finish 7th if he can pass Ocon, with Bottas still in 5th place, only Daniel Ricciardo in between them.
The Australian innings is over. They've finished 157 for 7 in the cricket. We'll be back there later on this afternoon here on 5 Live Sport. But for now, we have got 2 laps to go in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and Pierre Gasly for the Alpha Tauri team looks set to win his first ever Grand Prix in one of the most unlikeliest of cars out there. I would say there are, 3 teams I would be more surprised? Williams, Haas and...
Carlos, you're second. No mistakes. Just keep it really clinical.
I want this win, Tom.
So that's Tom Stallard, Sainz's engineer, saying, look, you're second, don't throw this away.
Sainz don't care. 1.1 seconds, but he slides out of Lesmo too. He needs to get within a second here because he's only got one more lap to do it and one more chance. The pressure on Gasly, you get jittery in this sort of position. He knows this is a Formula 1 win for him. He might not ever get another chance in his career, depending on what happens. But this is the stuff, and Sainz is within a second, just as they flash through the exit of Ascari. Gasly weaves again up to Parabolica. Sainz might get DRS, but he's still got a lot to do. The final lap of the Grand Prix in Italy is about to start. Darren points out that using hashtag BBCF1, Gasly was 2,000 to 1 to win this race at the start on some sites, and Carlos Sainz is closing in on him now as they come down the start-finish straight. He has a little fade towards the inside. Gasly is under huge pressure on the final lap of the race. Sainz is right behind him. He gets on the power. His exit isn't that great from the first chicane. Really, this is his next and final opportunity, coming down into the Variante della Roggia, the second chicane on the circuit. He's closing in. He's closing in. It's not enough. Gasly is holding on. Can he keep the pressure though? Can he withstand this last half a lap? They're doing average lap speeds of 160 miles an hour. Gasly is going to have to fight for this one all the way if he wants to take his first Formula 1 victory. The McLaren's quick in a straight line. He had a good closing speed on Gasly, but wasn't quite close enough. Now he's got the DRS once more down to Ascari, but Gasly's going to be clear here. Just no more mistakes for Gasly, and he's got this. Gasly through the left, through the right, and then through the left again, out of the Ascari chicane. Just one more corner to come. The man
man who was promoted to Red Bull last year. Then he was binned off halfway through the season. Red Bull didn't fancy him. They demoted him back down to the junior team. But now he turns through the Curva Parabolica, comes out onto the start-finish straight at Monza, and it's a historic win and a first win in Formula One for Pierre Gasly and the AlphaTauri team. Carlos Sainz finishes 0.4 of a second behind him. Third is Lance Stroll in the Racing Point. Fifth is Valtteri Bottas. Sixth is Daniel Ricciardo. Ocon finishes 7th, does he? Just ahead of Lewis Hamilton. No, Hamilton gets Ocon for 7th place, but the cheers and the cries and the screams of joy you can hear are from the AlphaTauri team, who for the first time in 12 years have won a Formula One Grand Prix. In the most turgid of Formula One seasons, we have been treated to an absolute classic. Gasly wins, Sainz second, Stroll third. Obviously Hamilton still leads the championship, but I don't care.
Holy moly, what a race that was. Pierre Gasly, what a guy.
Oh my God! What did you do?
What did you do?
You did it! You did it! Oh my God! Oh my God, guys, we did it again! Oh my God, yes!
P1, Pierre, P1. And full credit to the AlphaTauri team, because actually they got him there. He wasn't in that fight for best of the rest. You know, when we started this Grand Prix, the Mercedes were out front, they were going to disappear. We were excited for the battle for third. Well, once the Mercedes had their troubles, the battle for third becomes the battle for the win. Sainz was in the fight, Stroll was in the fight, Norris was in the fight, Gasly wasn't. A brilliant strategic move to pit just before the safety car was deployed. And then a classy, grown-up drive from the 24-year-old from Rouen has given Gasly this victory.
He can cope under pressure, and he had huge pressure on the final lap. Huge credit goes to Carlos Sainz for that drive as well. Second place. He would have been second without the chaos, but he managed it with the chaos. Here's his radio.
Oh, what a race, Carlos. P2, I know you wanted the win, but you're P2, buddy. That's a really good result. You've been great all weekend. You've been great all weekend and made up for that red flag. Great work, mate.
Yeah, I don't know what to do, not for to cry. So close, but yet so far. One more lap. I need one more lap.
He's gutted. The Spaniard is gutted, isn't he, as he returns to the pits.
When a race finishes and Carlos Sainz in a McLaren is gutted to finish second place, you know it's been a thriller. What a drive. I mean, Sainz really has done everything right this weekend. Qualified third, finished second. But who could have saw Pierre Gasly winning? The strategy call was genius, pitting right at the right time. It changed the race, and it really worked for Gasly. He had to get a good restart. He passed Lance Stroll at the restart. Then Hamilton took his penalty, and he controlled the race like a man belying his young years.
So Gasly climbs out of the car. He's had a torrid couple of years as the Frenchman. He won the GP2 championship, the Formula 2 championship a couple of years ago. Was very much the sort of next big thing. Then he got sent to Japan by Red Bull, who didn't fancy putting him up in the first team. Now he's in his, now he is leaping in with his mechanics, helmet on still. All the mechanics with their masks on as well as they celebrate. And look, everyone's a nice guy, but Pierre Gasly, he's a really nice guy. I first met him, I don't know, a couple of years ago at an awards event. We were sat on a table together. He was still in Formula 2 at the time. He was just a nice, friendly, chatty guy.
Very relaxed guy. He's great. He's a guy that you like to see do well, and watching his struggles last year was really difficult, but seeing him recover like this is something no one expected. He doesn't know what to do with himself, jumping around, still punching the air. I wrote a column on him last week.